the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel. They're two separate books in our modern Bibles, but that division is due simply to scroll length. It was originally written as one coherent story. We're just going to cover the book of 1 Samuel in this video. So after Israel was rescued from slavery in Egypt, they made a covenant with God at Mount Sinai and eventually came into the Promised Land. And there, Israel was supposed to be faithful to God and obey the covenant commands. Before the book of Samuel, Judges showed how Israel failed at that task big time. It was a period of moral chaos, and it showed Israel's need for wise, faithful leaders. The book of Samuel provides an answer to that need. The book of Samuel's story focuses on three main characters: the prophet Samuel, where the book gets its name, and then King Saul, and after that, King David. And all three of them transitioned Israel from a group of tribes ruled by judges into a unified kingdom ruled by King David in Jerusalem. And the book of Samuel has a fascinating design that weaves the story of these three characters together in four main parts. Samuel, he's the key leader and prophet in the first section of the book, but then he also plays a key role in the next section, which is Saul's story, and it's told in two movements: Saul's rise to power and then his failures. And the second part is about his downfall and his tragic death. And then the drama of Saul's demise is matched by David's exciting rise to power. And then David's story is told in two movements. First, he rides the wave of his success, followed by his own tragic failure and the slow self-destruction of his family and then his kingdom. The book concludes with an epilogue that reflects back over the whole story. So let's dive in and see how this all unfolds. Part 1 picks up from the chaos of the book of Judges, and we're introduced to a touching story about a woman named Hannah. And she's grieved because she has never been able to have children. And by God's grace, she finally has a son named Samuel. And in joy, she sings this amazing poem in chapter 2. And the poem is all about how God opposes the proud and exalts the humble, about how despite tragedies and human evil, God is working out his purposes in history. And also it's about how God will one day raise up an anointed king for his people. Now, Hannah's poem has been placed here at the beginning of the book to introduce these key themes that we're going to see throughout the whole story, like the next one. Samuel grows up and becomes a great prophet and leader for the people of Israel, at the same time that the Philistines rise to power as Israel's arch nemesis. And in this crucial battle, the Israelites get arrogant, and instead of praying and asking God for help, they trot out the Ark of the Covenant as this kind of magic trophy that will automatically grant them victory in battle. And so because of their arrogant presumption, God allows Israel to lose the battle and the ark is stolen. So the Philistines, they take the ark and they place it in the temple of their god, Dagon. And then the God of Israel defeats the Philistines and the god Dagon without an army by sending plagues on the people. And then the Philistines don't want the ark anymore, obviously, and they send it back to Israel. And the point of this little story seems to be this: God is not Israel's trophy, and he opposes pride among the Philistines, but also among his own people. And so Israel needs to remain humble and obedient if they want to experience God's covenant blessing, which opens up into the next large section. The Israelites come to Samuel and they say, "Hey, we want a king like all the other nations have. Go find one for us." And so Samuel, he's kind of ticked off and he goes to consult with God. And God says, yes, their motives are all wrong, but if a king is what they want, give them one. And so we're introduced to the figure of Saul. Now, Saul is a tragic figure because he begins full of promise. He's tall, he's good looking, he's a perfect candidate for a king, but he has deep character flaws. He's dishonest, he lacks integrity, and he seems incapable of acknowledging his own mistakes. And so these flaws become his downfall. He wins some battles at the beginning, but his flaws run so deep, he eventually disqualifies himself by blatantly disobeying God's commands. And so the aging Samuel confronts Saul and Israel. He had warned the people that they would only benefit from a king who's humble and faithful to God. Otherwise, the kings of Israel will bring ruin. So he informs Saul that God is going to raise up a new king to replace him. And so Saul's downfall begins, as God at the same time is working behind the scenes to raise up that new king. It's an insignificant shepherd boy named David. He's the least likely candidate to be king, but the famous story of David and Goliath shows that God's choice of David is not based on his family status, but simply on his radical and humble trust in the God of Israel. And so this story embodies all of the themes of Hannah's poem. Proud Saul and Goliath are brought low, while humble David is exalted. From here, we watch Saul slowly descend into madness, while David rises to power. So David starts working for Saul as a general, and he's winning all of the battles, and he's also winning all of the fame. And so Saul gets jealous, and he starts chasing David around, hunting him, trying to kill him. David's done nothing wrong, and so David simply runs and waits in the wilderness. And here we see David's true character. He has multiple opportunities to kill Saul, but he doesn't. He simply trusts that despite Saul's evil, God will raise up a king for his people. What's interesting, too, is that many of the poems of David that you find in the book of Psalms are linked to this very period of his life, and they all express the same attitude of trust. And so this section of the book ends with Saul coming to a grisly death after losing a battle with the Philistines. 1 Samuel tells some of the most intricate, well-told stories you find anywhere in the Bible, and the characters Saul and David, they're portrayed very realistically. And the author's putting them forward as character studies so that you can find yourself in them. So in Saul's story, we see a warning. It's crucial that we reflect on our own character flaws and how they harm us and other people. And with God's help, we need to humble ourselves and deal with our dark side so that Saul's story doesn't become ours. David, on the other hand, is presented as an example of patience and trust in God's timing in our lives. And so he's running in the wilderness, being chased by Saul. David had every reason to think that God had abandoned him, but that's not what he thinks. And so David's story encourages us to trust that despite human evil, God is working out his purposes to oppose the proud and to exalt the humble. And that's what 1 Samuel is all about.
I appreciate you all for watching that with me. I wanted to go over today who David and Goliath are. I know that for some it's very popular, not for all. They said they only have rabbits and hamsters, fishes and lizards, fire lizards, and turtles, hamsters. So, I appreciate you. I appreciate you. Yeah. So hamsters, I love hamsters. They're so cute. And then they all huddle together and then they sleep. Rabbits too, they all huddle together. You're very lucky. You're a very lucky individual. But I wanted to go. It's okay. Don't worry about it. Are you at work right now? You should stop. You should stop being on Twitch and go work. Yes. Slingshots. Vicious. Shepherd's also vicious. And Leggy, no problem. You know David once, he was rude, stole your french fries. That's okay, Leggy. Enjoy your game. Lego Star Wars is super cute. So, I want to hop in first into the scripture, just a little bit of rundown of who David was. You already saw in the Bible Project them describing David. He's the youngest of a family under the name Jesse. So Jesse's his father. And his brothers are off fighting who are called the Philistines. The Philistines are a group of people who inhabited Canaan. And Canaan is the promised land that God established with their ancestors, Abraham. But the problem with Canaan was that it was already inhabited by a people. And the Philistines, they actually came from the islands of Crete. So if you all are familiar with the Minotaur and the Labyrinth, those are those people. And they moved, and now they're in Canaan. We have a champion of the Philistines, and they don't want to move. Okay. So you're currently home. Okay, good. In the evening. I see. Good for you. Good for you. Okay. So they have a champion named Goliath. And Goliath is a trash talker to the max. Not only does he talk trash to the Israelites, but he talks trash about their God. And David gets wind of this. So David is out in the fields taking care of sheep. And he's tasked with bringing his brothers food. And as he's walking and greeting his brothers, he can hear Goliath just shouting obscenities towards their god, and it angers him. Now he's very small. I wouldn't say frail, but he has spent most of his life as a shepherd boy. So he approaches King Saul and volunteers himself to challenge Goliath. And Saul tries to give him a flurry of armor. He's rather concerned, but also impressed by David's ambition and confidence in God, that God will deliver them. Now, the other Israelites are fearful at this time. They don't trust that God will deliver them from their enemies. David says, I don't need any of that armor. I have killed lions and bears with my slingshot. So we go, and I won't spoil the rest, but David is very confident. He's a very unlikely hero, also an unlikely king. Typically, the next in line as far as lineage goes, the eldest of one's sons would inherit, whether it's land or power. And David being the youngest shows what Bible Project points out. God does not go by the laws of man, but by his own. And time again, God picks those who are the least likely candidates to receive power, blessing, and to be a great example for us that it's the humble that he uplifts. Anyway, we go into scripture now. Give me just a second. Hiya. Oh, no problem. I appreciate you being this. I was going to go into a bit afterwards to what is going on with the interviews, all the tech interviews that I have going on, and I feel very happy about what the processes that I've been going through, but we'll share that afterwards. Okay, so we're going to go through Eyewitness again afterwards, give you all some visuals, but first we go into scripture, and this is from 1 Samuel chapter 17. What do you mean? What's a donkey? What's a donkey? Super Mario Punch, you silly. So we'll just read just about 1.5 pages. 2.5 pages. Yeah, no, like 1 page, because anyway. Now the Philistines gathered their armies together to battle. What? No, it's not a donkey. That was a stag. The Patronus. You know? That's Harry Potter's Patronus. That's what I imagined. Anyways, I guess it doesn't. Nah, it's not a donkey. But I guess that would have been cute too, because Jesus did ride his donkey into Jerusalem. Yeah, but that's not something that I found on. I just got these transitions from Etsy. Now, the Philistines gathered their armies together to battle, and were gathered at, I want to say this is pronounced Soko, which belongs to Judah. They encamped between Soko and Ezekah in Ephes Damim. And Saul and the men of Israel gathered together, and they encamped in the valley of Elah, and drew up the battle array against the Philistines. The Philistines stood on a mountain on one side, and Israel stood on a mountain on the other side, with a valley between them. And a champion went out from the camp of the Philistines, named Goliath, from Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. So this person was about 9 feet tall. It is said and partially assumed Goliath is of the lineage of ancient giants. We have the Nephilim, the Rephaim, and another starting with A, but it's not confirmed. But he is a man of enormous height and quite blasphemous. He had a bronze helmet on his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail. And the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of bronze. So this is also, they mentioned the Philistines were of the Bronze Age. He had a bronze armor in his legs and bronze javelin between his shoulders. Now the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his iron spearhead weighed 600 shekels, and a shield bearer went before him. When he stood and cried out to the armies of Israel, he said to them, "Why have you come out, line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine, and you the servants of Saul? Choose a man for yourselves, and let him come down to fight me. If he is able to fight with me and kill me, then we will be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then you shall be our servants and serve us." And the Philistine said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man that we may fight together. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. So the Israelites were fearful of Goliath. They were not enthusiastic about going out to fight. They didn't trust that God would come to their rescue. When Saul and all Israel heard these words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and who had 8 sons. And the man was old, advanced in years in the days of Saul. The 3 eldest of Jesse had gone to follow Saul to battle. The names of these 3 sons who went to battle were Eliab, the firstborn, next to him, Abinadab, and the third, Shammah. David was the youngest, and the 3 oldest followed Saul. But David occasionally went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. The Philistine drew near and presented himself 40 days, morning and evening. Then Jesse said to his son David, Take now for your brothers an ephah of this dried grain and these 10 loaves, and run to your brothers at the camp. And carry these 10 cheeses to the captain of their 1,000, and see how your brothers fare, and bring back news of them. So David is now going to go deliver food to his brothers on the battlefield. Now Saul and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah, fighting with the Philistines. So David rose early in the morning, left the sheep with the keeper, and took the things and went as Jesse had commanded him. When he came to the camp as the army was going out to fight and shouting for the battle, for Israel and the Philistines had drawn up in battle array, army against army. And David left his supplies in the hand of the supply keeper, ran to the army, came and greeted his brothers. As he talked with them, there was the champion, the Philistine of Gath, Goliath by name, coming up from the armies of the Philistines, and he spoke according to the same words. So David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him and were dreadfully afraid. So the men of Israel said, Have you seen this man who has come up? Surely he has come up to defy Israel, and it shall be that the man who kills him, the king, will enrich with great riches, will give him his daughter, give him his father's house exemption from taxes in Israel. Then David spoke to the men who stood by him, saying, What shall be done for the man who kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is that uncircumcised Philistine? When the ancient Israelites referred to anyone else as uncircumcised as someone who was non-Jew, that he should defy the armies of the living God. The people answered him in this manner, saying, So shall it be done for the man who kills him. Now Eliab, his oldest brother, heard when he spoke to the men, and Eliab's anger was aroused against David. And he said, Why did you come down here? And with whom have you left those few sheep in the wilderness? I know your pride and the insolence of your heart, for you have come down to see the battle. So David's eldest brother is accusing him of leaving the sheep behind, his responsibilities, just so that he can take a peep at what's going on during this war. David said, What have I done now? Is there not a cause? Then he turned from him toward another and said the same thing, and the people answered him as the first ones did. Now, when the words which David spoke were heard, they reported them to Saul. Then he sent for him. So Saul, the king at the time, heard of what David was saying, and then Saul asked to see him. Then Saul said to David, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with this Philistine. Now David is offering himself as tribute to volunteer to fight with this giant. Saul said to David, You are not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for you are of youth, so you're too young, and a man of war in his youth. But David said to Saul, Your servant used to keep his father's sheep, and when a lion or a bear came and took a lamb out of the flock, I went out after it, and struck it, and delivered the lamb from its mouth. And when it arose against me, I caught it by its beard, and struck it, and killed it. So David is saying, Don't let my youth fool you. When a bear or a lion would come, take any of my sheep, I would chase it down, I'd grab it by its mane or its beard, and I'd kill it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, seeing he has defied the armies of the living God. Moreover, David said, The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and from the paw of the bear, he will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul said to David, Go, and the Lord be with you. So Saul is impressed by his faith that if God has delivered me from these wild beasts, so will he deliver me from this champion. So Saul clothed David with his armor. He put a bronze helmet on his head. He also clothed him with a coat of mail. David fastened his sword to his armor and tried to walk, for he had not tested them. And David said to Saul, I cannot walk in these, for I have not tested them. So David took them off. So Saul is dressing him in his finest armor. David said, I can't use this. It's too much for me. So he just shook him off. And then he took his staff in his hand and he chose for David 5 smooth stones from the brook and put them in a shepherd's bag, in a pouch which he had, and his sling was in his hand. And he drew near to the Philistine. So the Philistine came and began drawing near to David, and the man who bore the shield went before him. When the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was only a youth, ruddy and good looking. I appreciate that they added that David was good looking. He was young, a little dirty, but good looking. So the Philistine said to David, Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. The Philistine said to David, Come to me, and I will give you your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field. So he's talking trash. And then David said to the Philistine, You come to me with a sword and a spear, and with a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, and the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you and take your head from you. And this day I will give the carcasses of the camp of the Philistine to the birds of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, and all that the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. So he took what Goliath said, and he added to it. Not only will I feed you to the birds, but I will also cut off your head. You will be delivered to me today. Then all this assembly shall know that the Lord does not save with sword and spear, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give you into our hands. So it was, when the Philistine arose and came and drew near to meet David, that David hurried and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. Then David put his hand in his bag, took out a stone, and he slung it, and struck the Philistine in his forehead. So the stone sank into his forehead, and he fell on his face to the earth. So the stone hit him right here, just like in Braveheart. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone, and struck the Philistine and killed him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran, stood over the Philistine, took his sword, drew it out of his sheath, and killed him, cut off his head with it. And when the Philistines saw that their champion was dead, they fled. Now the men of Israel and Judah arose, shouted, and pursued the Philistines as far as the entrance of the valley and to the gates of Ekron. And the wounded of the Philistines fell along the road of Sharaim, even as far as Gath and Ekron. Then the children of Israel returned from chasing the Philistines, and they plundered their tents. So now it's time to pillage. We're going to take all their stuff. David took the head of the Philistine and brought it to Jerusalem. He put the armor in his tent. When Saul saw David going out against the Philistine, he said to Abner, the commander of the army, Abner, whose son is this youth? And Abner said, As your soul lives, O king, I do not know. So the king said, Inquire whose son this young man is. Then, as David returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, Abner took him, brought him before Saul with the head of the Philistine in his hand, and Saul said to him, Whose son are you, young man? So David answered, I am the son of your servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite. So, that is the battle between David and Goliath. Again, not everybody knows this story, and I really wanted to share that because from the line of David, it's been promised a Messiah would be born. And so Jesus Christ describes himself as the shepherd, the good shepherd. And for folks who don't have a lot of background with what it meant to be a shepherd, David describes it's not just watching sheep, but it's defending them from all sorts of beasts. And sheep can get lost. You must go and find them. So when Jesus is describing this, he's talking to a people that truly understand what it means to be a shepherd, and it makes sense to them. Today, we probably don't know many shepherds, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense to us. But here's a little bit of clarification as to why Jesus referred to himself as a shepherd. And not only that, he tasked his apostles to go reclaim his sheep, particularly Peter. Find his sheep, take care of his sheep. Now, this is the eyewitness version. This is going to be from David's perspective. Terrified. So we got Goliath right here. That's how I describe Saul's army. Our army. Let me just make sure. Our soldiers stood atop a hill overlooking the valley of Elah, armed and ready for battle. But their eyes were hollow, their silent throats full of dust, and their shoulders slouched from the weight of their fear. Across the valley, I appreciate you. Thank you, Goosey. Across the valley stood another army. The Philistines had been our enemy for as long as we could remember. They screamed insults, shook their fists, slammed their swords against their shields. They were tough, eager, battle-hardened. The toughest of all of them was a warrior named Goliath, standing alone, in the middle of the valley. Some called him a giant for good reason. He was taller than even our own King Saul. I appreciate you. Thank you, Goosey. I hope that you are enjoying yourself. Who was the tallest of the Israelites? So King Saul, also a good-looking man, very tall. Goliath stood taller than he. The sun glinted like a wall of jewels on Goliath's bronze armor. Come fight me, Goliath's booming voice echoed through the valley. He waved his spear, taunting our soldiers. I'm not afraid of you. Send your best man out to battle me. If he kills me, the Philistines will be your slaves. But if I kill him, Israel will be our slaves. He spat on the dirt. Only one man has to die today. Who will it be? For 40 days it had gone on like this. Every morning Saul's army grabbed their swords and ran to the battle line, ready to fight. But when Goliath strutted into the valley, their knees buckled and they stumbled backwards. My father had sent me to bring food to my older brothers, who served in Saul's army. Like the others, their eyes looked lost, as if marching into that valley was walking straight into the jaws of death. What are you doing? I asked the soldiers around me. How can you let that pagan get away with defying God and his chosen army? Someone needs to put him in his place. Did you even look at him? One of the soldiers said. He's huge. He'd squash any of us like a rotten grape. But what happens when someone beats him? Don't we win? It's better than that, said a second soldier. King Saul's offered whoever kills the giant one of his daughters for a wife and no taxes for the rest of his life. I'll keep the taxes and my head, thanks, joked a third. But you're Israelites, I said. Our army conquered the mighty walls of Jericho with just shouts and trumpets. Goliath is just a man. He's just another wall to tear down, and you can do it. I felt a firm hand on my shoulder. Shut up and go home, said Eliab, his oldest brother. Kids don't belong here. Go back to your flock of sheep and leave the man stuff to us. I'm not the baby in the family. Oh, I'm sorry. I am the baby of the family, the shortest too. The brothers have always tried to keep me in my place, but not this time. I brushed Eliab's hand off my shoulder. You're afraid, I said, staring him down, but I'm not. God's on our side, and we have nothing to fear. It wasn't long before King Saul heard about some kids stirring things up among the soldiers. Next thing I knew, I was standing at the king's tent. Saul may have been a warrior, but he was afraid too. He knew he couldn't retreat, but there was no getting his army to attack either. He didn't know what to do. But I did. Send me, I said. I'll fight the giant. Saul did his best not to laugh. Look, kid, I respect your bravery, but don't be ridiculous. Goliath has been slaughtering men since before you were born. No one can beat him, especially a skinny little shepherd boy. Let the adults handle this. I took a deep breath, raised my chin, and looked the king straight in his eyes. Your Majesty, the Philistines are afraid of you, I told him. If they thought they could win this battle, they would have attacked us by now. That's why they sent that giant pig to distract you. They're waiting you out, hoping you'll walk away and go home. I am a shepherd, and I've got the scars of a shepherd, he said, lifting up his arm and showing him old wounds. When a lion or bear tries to snatch up one of my lambs, I chase those beasts down and beat every last breath out of them. I'm not afraid because the Lord is my shepherd. He protects me, even when I walk into a valley filled with death. I've killed lions and bears, and I can kill that giant too, because God will go with me. No one can stand against the Almighty God of Israel. Then I bowed my head before the king. Saul stared at me, his thick arms folded across his chest. A tiny smile cracked the corner of his mouth. I like this kid, Saul said to his officials. I wish I had 1,000 more like him. Get him into my armor and ready to fight. Wait, what? For a moment, I couldn't believe what was happening. The king's servant strapped Saul's chainmail over my body and put his bronze helmet on my head. It was so heavy I could hardly move. This won't work, I protested, struggling to lift my arms. Take it off. I don't need it. You're even braver than I thought, King Saul said. He ordered the armor off and put his hand on my shoulder. Our fate is in your hands, young man. No, sir, I bowed. Our fate is in God's hands. So when I walked out of Saul's tent, no one was looking at me except the king himself. But by the time I reached the edge of the valley, the army had turned silent, and every eye was now on me. Where are you going? Called Eliab. Fetching more cheese to go with my bread? I'll be right back, I said without even a backwards glance. The valley of Elah lay empty. The Philistine army stood, stunned, silent, on the far ridge, watching me walk towards the center of the battlefield. Scavenger birds squawked as they circled overhead, no doubt disappointed in the size of the meal they were expecting. I paused at a stream, knelt for one last prayer, picked up 5 smooth stones, not too big, not too small, and slipped them into my bag. I hoped they would be enough. My stomach twisted. I held my breath, wondering if I had just made the dumbest decision of my life. Then I closed my eyes and wrapped my fingers around one of the stones in my bag, and I heard my shepherd speak to me. I am with you. A deep voice thundered across the valley. Have you finally sent a soldier to fight me? Said Goliath. The Philistines behind him raised their swords and cheered like a horde of hyenas. I swear I felt the ground shake as Goliath stomped toward me. He carried a massive spear in one hand, a javelin on his shoulder, and a thick sword in his sheath. In front of him marched another soldier carrying Goliath's shield. The closer he got, the bigger he got, and the harder my heart pounded in my chest. When the giant got near enough for me to see the sneer on his face, he stopped. Are you serious? Goliath shouted. I asked for a warrior and they send me a child with a stick? Do you think I'm a dog? Did you come to play fetch? Goliath laughed through his teeth. I think the birds will kill you before I do. Goliath loomed far larger than I imagined. He was tall, muscular, able to crush my bones with the squeeze of his fist. For a moment, I couldn't help thinking how awesome it would be if this guy were on our side. But then I remembered, we didn't need him. We had God. I had God. Goliath's lips twisted into a snarl. I'll rip your scrawny body apart and feed you to the rats, boy. By the name of my gods, Dagon and Baal-zebul, I curse you and your God. I've heard enough. I raised my voice so everyone could hear me. You think you're powerful? You come at me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I come at you in the name of the armies of the Lord of heaven. Today, my God will silence you forever. I'll cut off your fat, hideous head with your mouth, so your mouth never utters another blasphemous word. Then I'll feed you to your birds, along with the bodies of the rest of your army. As your pile of bones turn to dust, my God will still be our God, and the whole world will know that God rescues his people. Goliath's eyes narrowed. His veins throbbed in his neck. Then, as Goliath raised his spear, I ran straight at him, as fast as I could. I pulled a stone from my bag, notched it in my sling, spun it in a swirling blur, and then, still sprinting at top speed, I let the stone fly. My shot was perfect. It hit him right between the eyes. He staggered, his body went limp, and he sank beneath the weight of his armor, collapsing into the dirt. I'd knocked him out cold. I ran to where Goliath lay in the dust, blood dripping from his forehead. I pulled Goliath's heavy sword from his sheath and raised it above my head with both hands, holding it there for a moment for all to see. And then I brought that blade down on Goliath's neck as hard as I could. I hacked and chopped until his great head fell from his massive corpse. The giant was dead. The army of Israel screamed in triumph, pouring down into the valley. The Philistine army turned and ran. Saul's soldiers chased after them and picked them off one by one, leaving their dead bodies alongside the road for miles. Soon Saul called me back into his tent. I carried Goliath's severed head, a bloody trophy for the king. Saul stared at me for a long time. He seemed dumbstruck by my very existence. Who are you? He wondered aloud. It seemed to me a strange question. I wasn't anyone. Not anyone special, anyway. I shrugged and said, I'm Jesse's son, just a shepherd from Bethlehem. Now, a little bit of reflection at the end of a lot of these stories. Our main characters have something to say. I tried on King Saul's armor. I even tried on the giant's armor after the soldiers stripped it from Goliath's body and gave it to me. None of it fit. I could never become something God didn't design me to be. Outwardly, I couldn't force myself into a mold that's already filled by somebody else. But inside, I have room to grow. The space you can't see is the place where God can do his most important work. So, what's the lesson here? Destroy your enemies? No. Don't be afraid of something that's bigger than you? Not really. It's what's on the inside that counts? Kind of. The lesson is simple. God loves you and God is with you. It doesn't matter where you were born, what your job is, who your family is, or how beautiful you are or aren't. God loves you. And when God loves you, you don't need armor or swords or armies. All you need is to be close to God's heart. Only then will you be ready for whatever giant awaits you. Goliath Online. Hello, Mr. Nevad. Hello, Mighty Lion. So a little bit of reflection with what we're reading. This was from 1 Samuel chapter 17, and this is the big battle between David and Goliath. Now, I had that interview that I had mentioned, and I hope you two are well. Thank you for allowing me to read this through. So, I interviewed with that company that I had mentioned, and I know I was expressing a lot of my reservations for what they could be doing as it pertains to the foundations of my faith, and I found the conversation to be very lovely. From time to time, we find somebody that we can click on at all levels, and to be able to openly speak about my love for Christ to somebody that I'm applying to a technical job for was really different. She asked me how I felt about certain hot topic issues. And the only thing that I could say is, in this world, a lot of us chase identity. Who am I? What am I here for? What is my purpose? That's, as we get older, that takes up a lot of our thoughts. People can say things like, I'm a mother, I'm a developer, I'm a gamer, I'm a wife, I'm a teacher, I'm a police officer. And while all these things can be true, when we pursue maintaining that identity, that becomes its own idolatry. When you lose that identity, you feel like you lose a part of yourself. So there had been a time where I even asked myself, who am I? I was not enjoying certain aspects of my job, and I was questioning whether or not I should even stay in tech. And, okay, Mr. Nevad. You mean Hot Topic, like inside of Hot Topic? That's funny. So you mean they were bloody? But I had asked God, who am I? And he doesn't speak to me audibly, okay? And if he does, it's through people. But in my head, he told me, you are mine. That's my identity. One day my children could die. Does that mean I'm no longer a mother? It may feel that way. One day my husband could die. Does that mean I'm no longer a wife? Was that my only identity? Getting laid off really makes us question whether or not we're supposed to be in a particular industry. I want to stay in tech, but that's not all that I am. So this is the main reason why God, through Jesus, instructed us to love him with all your heart, mind, and soul, because he cares for you. My identity is not going to be there for me when things are difficult. Sometimes not even family will be there for you. But when we focus our minds on the one that created us all, you find that you can deal with a lot more than those who rely on their jobs or their families or their friends to tell them who they are. I appreciate you, Mr. Nevad. I'm okay. I'm an okay developer. Okay? I could be better. Speaking of that, we go into now our next bit, and this is going to be about tech interviews. So let me see. Let me grab this real quick. The tech interview is quite challenging, and it can be very different from the job itself. I'm going to open up what's called educative. Goosey, save your money. It says educative. Educative is a platform that helps us get up to speed with whatever new tech, old tech interviews, React, AWS. I purchased the premium version of this so that I could actually practice what some of the questions that I'm being hit with during these interviews. And I have been hit with Big O notation. Big O notation is it has to do with time complexity and the memory or the space that's taken up by algorithms that we write to break down information, to parse through information, to spit back out information. And we, using for loops, while loops, pointers. I had been hit with a couple of these, and I realized that as far as Big O notation is concerned, there was a bit that I had to get up to speed on. So I purchased this book here, and I'm gonna hop back in this, and this is, we are in, hold on, let me see, software, yes. So this book here is for loops. I mean, I use them all the time. I use them all the time. And to understand how I haven't been utilizing the fastest methods to break down, especially a lot of big data, is quite important. And let me also make sure we're still in. Yes. So, Cracking the Coding Interview, a must-have. This is written by a female named Gail McDowell. She has worked for Apple, Amazon, and whom else? Microsoft. And she decided to write this out for us. So I'm actually I've been going through, she speaks on a level that's not so complex. We do get very technical here, but instead of just reading through, I've been practicing and writing out these different concepts. And I'm using both educative and this book concurrently. She's just missing Google. Now let me see. I think she worked for Google. Hold on. Let me see. Let me go back there. Let me go back there. What's her name? Gail McDowell. I didn't even know, too, that she... Yeah, so Gail McDowell, who does she work for? She was an intern for Apple. Intern for Apple. Yes, 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 yes. That's true, Iggy. Now I know. I didn't know that before. I didn't know that before. So who did she work for? Who did she work for? So she was software engineer at Google, intern. And where else? Where else? And then worked also at Microsoft. So I wanted to show you all a little bit of what I had been coding. And she's teaching, I think she's teaching in Java. Anyway, I've been trying to challenge myself to write out some of these lessons in JavaScript and in C++. But I guess maybe she don't want Facebook, so that's fine. Bubble sort. Oh, we have bubble sort in here. We have quick sort. I understand now what it means to use pointers in a palindrome. Hitting that middle index. That was something that I didn't understand at the time. Now I do. I know how to write a palindrome, but I didn't know if there were more effective methods, and now I understand that. So I'm just trying to go through, not Bulbasaur, bubble sort. Okay, so this is just using JavaScript. You can write just a simple JS file. You install what they call NoDaemon, not NoDaemon, NoDaemon. You run it. Okay, you install that globally. So to install globally, npm install NoDaemon-g. G means global. Okay, so that everywhere within your machine can access this service. And so what it does is it watches for changes within your file, and every time there's a change and it's saved, reruns it. Okay, and I'll show you a teeny example. So NoDaemon, Node.js. I don't know why I called it Node.js, that's stupid, but that's okay. So this is right now detecting whether or not a string is a palindrome, but we can go through, yeah. So let me just, for example, pointers. I detect first, and I tried this out with the solution that they had in Educative, but I wanted to write my own first, and for the most part, it went hand in hand. No demon. It's okay. We're stronger than demons. With the power of the Lord, you are stronger than demons. When the apostles were able to exorcise demons, they were super excited about it. Like, did you see that? They even answered to us, and then they're gone now. And Jesus says, stop being so excited about that. Be excited that your names are written in heaven. This was a lesson for us all. We can receive holy gifts, but don't be so focused on that gift that you forget about God. Yeah, I don't have to. I should, but not yet. So, We first mid-index. It takes in a string. We detect what the mid-index is. Instead of using math.floor, I wanted to know how to write that because I was challenged in an interview to not use any methods at all. So let me show you all the concept of floor. There it is. It's quite simple. We are taking the number that we want to confirm whether or not, we want to round this number. Floor means we're rounding down, okay? And I want it to round down. So we take the number in question, confirm whether or not it is, when we divide it by 1, if there is a decimal point of 0.5 and up, we are going to subtract that, okay? And then we return the result. I'm having a sorting class in college. Find everything. I know. Watch recursive sorts and percents. Like, which crap? I know. So that's what we're doing without using the actual built-in method. Failing interview goes stupid religion. Okay, so anyway, it's good that we're talking about it. Why not use modular division instead? Is that not this? Well, so is that not? So we get the quotient of 1. We divide. And if it's 0.5 or up, we don't want to make it too complex. Okay, if we can do something simply, and I'll show you all what that looks like. Okay, so for floor, we take console log, and so you can see all in action, the number in question. Okay, and it's nice to see you, Bootness. The number in question, and then we're going to divide that number by 4. You all will see it in this decimal value, and that's what we subtract from the number. And yeah, we don't have to write anything. Yeah. It does simplify the procedure. That's very simple. You can't go smaller than that. Show me an example, Bootness. Show me an example. This was the simplest way to round down that I was able to find. If you have a simpler way, show me. So in tech, typically, is booty. Is either booty or bootness. I don't know why that didn't show up though. Hold on. That's a log string. Yes. Ah, because I didn't do floor up here. Sorry. Is palindrome. Is palindrome pointer. Ah, that's why. So I was playing around with pointers. I have 2. There. It's been forever since you programmed. Well, I mean, so normally, no. Hold on. I want to show you all the numbers, okay? So now hold on a second. Let's make sure though that number's coming out correctly. Let me make sure, okay? And then the result. So it should be up. Let me just make sure that that's doing it the way it's supposed to, because the answers are correct, but it might not be doing what it's supposed to be doing. Now that it's coming out, it doesn't really look right to me. Hold on a second. Hold on. What should we type? What should we write? Looks fine to you? Okay. Must be qualified for going. You could be, yeah. Something, low level. What should we write out? We'll just do method, function without method, round down JavaScript. You know what is also a superpower? What to Google. So everyone says math.floors. That's what I'm not trying to use. No. So Bootness, every time we have something better, just show us like Iggy does. You show us and we'll see. Okay? Yeah, so this is what I was trying to avoid. I'm trying to write my own method. Let's try to break that down. Method describe dot floor. It's Python and that's okay. No. Nope. So it's not showing us what's inside. Well, so parseInt, that's another method that I would be asked to avoid, to make it just straight code. I was asked that because I used .sort, and anyways, I moved forward in that particular interview. They had me meet with the CEO, and it's a big responsibility, so I don't know if I don't take this one. And I didn't get to see anybody's faces, so I think that's kind of shady. No built-in methods. That's exactly the objective here. No built-in methods. That's why we put that for. Anyway, okay, let's go back to pointers, all right? Back to pointers. I looked for the mid-index, the middle of the index here, and then around down, all right? From there, we're gonna go from both directions in the for loop instead of traversing through it entirely. Okay, so when we hit the middle, I want to stop. So it actually cuts that time in half. And I was doing that already, but I wanted to see what I could do using a while loop. It's okay. It's okay, Booty. It's okay, Booty. And Debbie, I hope that you're okay. I appreciate you for coming through. We were talking about David before he became King David. So as far as while loops are concerned, and I was also asked that to not use a for loop, we define what the start of the index is and the end of the index, or the length of. I get why they asked for this stuff. I was a little dumb because you're in a single job. I know, Iggy. I know. I expressed this, and he agreed. And so instead of arguing with him, I just went ahead and jumped on Google, and then it's like, okay, I can do it like this. And one of these came up using a while loop. He's like, I want you to try to do that. I was like, okay, so it's quite convoluted. I'd rather stick with .sort, but this is what I would do. And he laughed and said, "It's everyone else cheats when they Google stuff. You just show me what you're Googling." I'm like, yeah, because that's what I would be doing on the job. And they liked it. They liked my transparency. So what we're doing here, I'll explain this. We're looking first. And we don't have to break up the string into its own individual characters. JavaScript is now reading each character as its own indice. Yeah, so he liked it, and then I was pleasantly surprised. I didn't think I'd get a call back. This is how I work. So we'll move from left to right, okay? And wherever the letters, and if you can see this here, an example. So we're comparing A to A, B to B, and we're going in that order, C to C. If at any point those letters don't match, stop. That's not a palindrome. And as soon as we reach the middle, in my original palindrome try, I was even comparing the two middle numbers. Whereas pointing in this way, it doesn't matter if we're even or odd in terms of the character amount within the string. Not for clothing, sometimes. Sometimes transparent clothes are cute. What's her face? She was the ex-girlfriend of Marilyn Manson. Y'all know who I'm talking about. She had the very pale skin and the dark hair. She wore a transparent dress. It was hot. So that's what we're doing. And before I was determining whether or not we have an odd or even number of characters, and this is an actually faster way of doing it. And if we are finding that they do match, I want to iterate left, and for right, I want to decrement by 1 each. And so that means that we keep going. So if you can imagine, the string matches, we get to continue. Left adds 1, right subtracts 1. The reason why we have string length -1, for those of you who aren't familiar, the first index of an array is counted as 0. So this will return to us the actual amount, but when we're traversing through in a way, you start with 0, not 1. So that's why we're subtracting 1. And as we continue, we will meet in the middle. So this is the more efficient way of solving for a palindrome that will push you to the next rounds of tech interviews. And then I'm asked, what is the big O notation for this? And this is O-N because it's constant. It requires one for loop. If it were nested, O-N squared, which becomes a little slower. Breaking it in half like this, though, like this, O-N divided by 2. Why? Because we're breaking that constant in half. Except the dumb language to start in this is what? I did not know that. Good to know. I didn't know that. By the way, if you want to find a job, COBOL, Fortran, they're having a hard time finding developers for these languages because those folks are retiring now. We have all these fancy languages out there, and it's just sort of difficult to find folks. Now, or they're or they're dead, or they have died. Now, the next challenge that I'm solving is finding the sum of 3, and I found a couple of solutions that are the fastest, and that is, we'll go back to educative here. And remember, Gail McDowell, the author of Cracking the Coding Interview. I was really pleasantly surprised to know she's female. Or we are analyzing algorithm or need for speed. So this one here is, this is where I was encountering that find the sum of 3. But they have the most hilarious description of how fast is somebody and what is it we're trying to achieve. AS 400 course at your school. AS. What does AS stand for? What does that stand for? And I'll give you an example. And it had my attention. Folks highly recommend this. It's hilarious. Apprentice to an old coding master showing up all sorts of archaic tricks. Assembly? Is that assembly language? I took assembly. It was easy. That's because I was just copying everything I saw in the book. And also it was one of my first online courses. Yeah, assembly. So, the racetrack. Hi, sexy Jeff, how you? Make me a game. Give me a game. I wonder if they have any games actually in assembly. Let me see. Games made in assembly language. Roller Coaster Tycoon. What's the most complex game? Roller Coaster Tycoon. What? Roller Coaster Tycoon. It's glad to see you. How have you been? What have you been doing? On PlayStation. All right. I mean, all of them. Yo. So maybe it's worth it learning assembly. It says almost all NES, SNES, and Genesis games. Are you kidding me? There's a mismatch between image and game. You sure? What do you mean? It's just, you know. Look at it. Look. Oh, you shoot things too. I've heard of Roller Coaster Tycoon. That's fun. Okay, so let me give you an example of what Educative is doing. And if you all, I can give out my credentials if we know each other well, so that you can study if you'd like. Yes, let's say you are a participant in your school's annual sports competition, which includes the 100-meter dash. So this is the way that they're describing Big O in human terms. You are Amy, babe. Hi. Thank you for that. You're super sweet. We are talking about Big O. Big O can be intimidating for many. I no longer feel as intimidated. I will give us some practice examples to see if we picked up on any of these concepts. But I hope that you're well. What have you been doing? Okay, so as a racetrack, runners. We got 3 runners, okay? We know Milka is the fastest runner in the school and will probably finish on the first day of the race. The night before the competition, you explain your predicament to your mom. She innocently asks, but how fast is Mika? She hasn't seen you or Milka run, so she has no clue how your respective sprinting abilities. You reply back, faster than me, which is not a lot of information. She quizzes back, but how much faster than you? You quit back, faster than me, but definitely slower than Usain Bolt, someone your mother has seen run. By providing these comparisons to your mother, you are essentially setting a lower and upper bound on the running abilities of Milka. So Worst case, best case. That is what we're trying to assume. That's awesome. Been traveling. Went to Portland, Philippines, and Japan. My goodness, so much traveling. It's fine. As soon as the concepts start to make sense, it's just math. And you're like, and then it applies everywhere. But wow, for what? You just cuz? That's amazing. Oh my goodness. How long did you stay in each place? No worries, Bootness. You go do your thing. Okay, so we're setting the worst case is Usain Bolt, the slowest. Best case is Milka. And you as the runner are trying to find a median, okay? Merge start. So was I trying to do that yet? And I'm going to show you all a visualization. I know that some folks have seen it, not all. I'd love to share it. And this messed up, okay? So you can also compare yourself directly to Usain Bolt and say you run slower than him. But then you're not bounding your skill tightly enough. So we want to tighten that, okay? You are talking of the best. This person is speaking to their mother of the fastest and the slowest. But are there others that we can compare to that match more similarly your speed? Just cuz you were in Portland for a few days, Philippines for a week, and Japan for 10 days or so. Did you see Faith? Did you get to see Faith? In Japan, that's awesome. That's awesome. 10 days, you gotta stay at least more than a week, right? What did you see in Japan? Did you hit up the beaches as well? I'm super jealous. That's amazing. Did you take your son with you? Okay, so so you also compare yourself directly to Usain Bolt and say you run slower than him, but that you are not bounding your skill tightly enough. As you might as well say you run slower than the speed of light. So it's not, we need more information. That statement, though, factually correct, isn't informative enough. The closer a reference point you can share with respect to your speed, the better your friends will be able to judge your chances of winning on the competition day. However, if you tell them you're even slower than Sogalau Tuvalu, then surely no one will be betting money on you. And this was fucked up. Okay, this is legit. Like, you pay for this. Why they gotta do this guy so dirty like this? Then I realized I'd like educative. So look at that. Why they gotta do him so dirty? Why they do him so dirty like that?
One thing you can be quite sure of, he's not a runner.
So then the commentator says you can be quite sure he's not a runner. That's not nice. Now, why not use a stopwatch, they say, because it's not as... It doesn't really show the worst case and best case in ways that will be efficient for big data. These are the big... That's messed up. No. I'm just explaining Big O. No need for concentration at the moment. Your son wants to move to Japan. It wasn't enough time. You need to go back. You stayed in Tokyo. Awesome. Straight to Osaka, Nara, and Kyoto next year. Okay. I hear what I've been told. 1 week in Tokyo, 1 week in Osaka is what we all should be doing. Did you get to touch any animals? Did you get to... Were you a Disney princess over there? I hear that the birds land on your finger and you can pet the deer, and I want to do that. They also have a bunny island. The bunny island, these bunnies escaped from some kind of testing facility and now they're just everywhere and they can lay on you. Look, let's see. Bunny Island, Japan. Just look at those bunnies. It's Rabbit Island. It's bunnies, look at them. And they're just there, and then they're just everywhere. And what do they do over there? They lay on you. Those are pictures I saw. I don't need to see all this. I want to see all the rabbits laying on people. Hey, look. Yeah, see, look. This is what I want. I want to do that. See this guy? That's what I want to do. Look. Doesn't that look amazing? He's feeding them all. You didn't go. Animal cafes. 8-day waiting period. Go to Nara. Go to the deer park. Yes. Yes, I do too. More fun vacations in Japan. Oh no. You don't like rabbits, Iggy. Why is such a hater always? Okay, look, you don't have to let them lay on you, but look, they touch you. They touch you. I know. Oh no. You know, they might need it. They got a lot going on over there. Okay, so, and then they compare different things too. But example, and this is why I'm going to hop into now the big O concepts, visuals. They have a visualization of all these concepts. But as far as traversing through an array, the worst case would be hitting each indice and checking. Best case is when whatever it is you're trying to sort is already in the state of being sorted, so nothing needs to happen. So we are trying to search for the best and the worst case in all these scenarios. Like if your name was out of order. If Teresa were out of order, the worst case situation would be if it were just flipped. Starting instead of T-E-R-E-S-A, it's A-S-E-R-E-T. Let's see, big O visualizer. That one. And this guy explained it at the very end. He says, and all this doesn't matter. And he's right. Annotation. Let's do, what was it? It was, I think it was description. Because I liked him, he was hilarious. Description. So he took what someone else did. Well, your name's pretty long, that's why. Let's see. In 5 minutes. Is it this guy? He's hilarious.
If you're dealing with algorithms, you probably
Not
have
this
heard
guy.
the phrase.
Let me look at my history. My channel. My history. This guy. 15 sorting algorithms in 6 minutes. Beep. I don't want to have the player on the side like that.
So what is ClickUp? ClickUp is an all
ClickUp. So many commercials all the time now. It takes forever. Yes, it's beautiful. Now, let me put myself away. Maximize this. Listen to this dude. Not this one. What the heck? This guy.
Like C, JavaScript, or any other language.
Yes.
Here's a stack of books.
Because this is important for anybody who is testing, not just for big companies now, but for all kinds of companies, small companies, medium-sized companies. They're all taking advantage of these concepts and what folks like Fang are using. And I find it a little unfair, but if that's what they want from their developers, fine.
From the library. Now sort them in alphabetical order. Computers have to do stuff like this all the time. It's a seemingly simple requirement that can be accomplished with dozens of different sorting algorithms, all of which have trade-offs, with no one optimal approach. Modern languages have built-in functions to do the heavy lifting for you, but you won't always have that luxury on a technical interview or when doing low-level systems programming. In today's video, we'll not only implement 7 different sorting algorithms in code, but also see and hear them in action thanks to an amazing project called The Sound of Sorting. If you're preparing for a technical interview, these visualizations and audibilizations will absolutely change your life. Major props to Timo Bingman for releasing these videos under Creative Commons so we can use them in videos like this. I'm going to implement my algorithms in JavaScript and then benchmark them at the end. And you can find the source code on GitHub. But first, I want to check out an amazing product from our sponsor, JetBrains MPS. To the average developer, building a custom programming language sounds like an impossible challenge. However, with this open source IDE from JetBrains, anyone can build their own domain-specific language, like MetaR, which is a highly specialized language for biomedical students who would otherwise have to learn how to program in R. JetBrains MPS is a logical editor as opposed to a text editor, allowing end users to interact with the code visually. This allows non-programmers to easily integrate their own domain logic. Then MPS will generate the code for the underlying platform, like C, JavaScript, or any other language. That means anyone in the organization can harness the power of code in a safe, easy-to-learn environment, along with all the awesome tooling you would expect, like code completion, debuggers, and more. To get started, simply download it for free and give it a try. Now back to the program. The first algorithm algorithm we'll implement is bubble sort, which in my opinion is the easiest one to wrap your head around. It works by comparing adjacent elements, then swaps them if they're in the wrong order, which allows smaller elements to bubble to the top of the list. First, we'll set up a for loop for the length of the array, inside of which we'll nest another loop that loops over the array minus the current index. In this loop, we can do swapping by comparing the current index to the one next to it. If the left side is greater than the right side, then they'll need to trade places. The process continues until we go through the entire outer loop. And here's what it looks like.
Join hundreds of high achievers at the Aspire Tour coming to Ontario, California, Thursday, July.
Bubble sort is intuitive, but not very performant. Its average time complexity is O of n squared, or quadratic time, which gets slower and slower as the list grows longer. This won't cut it in the real world. Another fairly easy option to implement is insertion sort, which builds up a sorted array one element at a time. Once again, we start with a loop, but this time we start at index 1, or the second value in the array. We then set up variables for the current value and previous index, and while the previous index is greater than the current value, we move the previous value to the right. Then we move to the left until we find a previous value that is smaller, at which point we can insert the current element. Here's what it looks like in action. Once again, we have a nested loop here, which results in quadratic time complexity, but in practice it can still be pretty fast if the input data is already mostly sorted. Another similar approach is selection sort. It works by finding the smallest element in the array and exchanges it with the element at the beginning, then repeats this process until it's fully sorted. Once again, we loop over the entire array and then add a nested loop inside of it, but this time we're looking for the minimum value in the subarray in this nested loop. If the minimum value doesn't equal the current value, then we swap them out, which will effectively put the smallest element in the proper position, then repeat that process across the entire array. Let's check it out. And merge sort also results in quadratic time. Next up, we have merge sort, which is a divide and conquer algorithm that's been around since the 1940s. The idea is to break the main array into subarrays, sort them, and then merge them back together. Unlike the other examples we've looked at, this one is implemented recursively. First, the recursive function finds the midpoint of the array. Then we have a base case here that will stop the loop when the array length is less than 2. We then break the array in half at the midpoint using splice, and then we call the same function on both halves. But in order for that to work, we'll also need to implement a merge function that does the actual sorting. It loops over both arrays simultaneously, compares their values, and adds them in order to a new array. Then finally, it merges everything back together. Here's how it looks. It's a bit more complex to implement, but performs much better at quasi-linear time. That's why a variation of merge sort is the algorithm implemented under the hood for array sort in JavaScript, as well as many other languages and applications. One drawback though is that it doesn't sort in place and requires extra memory. If that's a problem, a similar alternative option is quicksort. It's also a divide and conquer algorithm that uses a pivot element to create subarrays that are sorted recursively. With quicksort, the array isn't necessarily split in half and works with any ratio. To sort the array in place, we'll first create a function called partition. Its job is to divide the array into two parts to separate the elements smaller than the pivot from the values greater than the pivot. In this case, the pivot value is set to the element at the right index of the array. From there, we loop over the portion of the array between the left and right values. If a value is less than the pivot value, then we swap it with the element at the partition index. From there, we can create a recursive function called quicksort to divide and conquer both the left and right side of the array. This is the more proper way to implement quicksort, but we can illustrate the concept a little better by cheating. In this more simplified function, notice how I'm first determining a pivot point on the array, then we divide and conquer by filtering out items that are less than the pivot on the left side and items that are more than the pivot on the right side. Now call that recursively to sort the entire array. That works, but it won't perform as well as the previous implementation. In any case, let's go ahead and watch it on TV. Next up, we have radix sort, which was created all the way back in the 1800s for tabulating machines. It's still used today on values like integers or binary strings because it takes a unique approach where it groups items that share the same significant position or place value. The implementation is a bit more complex, but basically it works like this. It splits the elements of the array into 10 buckets, one for each digit 0 through 9. It then loops over those buckets and has a nested loop for the array itself. Get digit will then find the number at that place, going from 0 to 9, which provides a bunch of sorted buckets that are combined back into the original array. What's interesting here is that there's no direct comparison going on. We're only looking at the underlying digits. This implementation is called LSD, or least significant digit, but it's also possible to work in the other direction with most significant digit. That's pretty cool. Let's check it out. And finally, I saved the worst for last, BOGO sort, also known as stupid sort. This would be like if you had a deck of cards and kept shuffling them over and over again and just hope that one time they're in perfect order. It's totally random. To implement it, I have a helper function called shuffle that takes the array and randomizes all the elements with the math random function. Then I have another helper function that loops over the array to determine if it's sorted or not. Then we simply put those two together in a while loop until we get a sorted array. Not surprisingly, it looks pretty wonky. To finish things up, I made a quick benchmark just to test these implementations, and here's how everything played out. Bubble sort and cocktail shaker sort were near the bottom, while heap, shell, and quick sort were near the top, but it really depends on what you're sorting. This graphic from TopTal illustrates how different types of input data change the performance characteristics of these algorithms. A 10x engineer needs to understand the trade-offs and implement the optimal algorithm. Luckily for most of us, we can get by with array sort, so basically everything you learn in this video is completely useless on a practical level. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
The L'Oreal.
He reminds us it's all useless on a practical level. I agree, but not quite, you know? So there is, as I'm traversing through, and by the way, interviews are going pretty well. I am looking forward to two for companies that I do want to work for. One is doing something very similar to what I used to do back at the company that Iggy and I were at, and there was another afterwards. It's nice to see you, boss. How are you? Now, that kind of work I love because it's very visual. But with that company that I'd mentioned, it's one where they provide resources for churches and missions and Bible study. I spoke with them on the phone. I really love it. Their attitude towards some of these hot topics was one that I could appreciate. Currently, they are connected with what's called the Southern Baptist Convention, and the Southern Baptist Convention is they're having a little bit of trouble with accepting women in leadership positions, to where this company told me that they are actively fighting against them in this regard, which is very precious to me, that even though they're associated with one another, when it comes to fighting the good fight, this is what they do. He gets it, of course. Every language is going to have a built-in sort for general use cases. Exactly, it's going to be an optimized one. This is exactly true. So no reason to do all of this, except, as he said, super low level system. I agree. Iggy, I agree. I have been having a great day. My husband just got back from France. He was there on a work trip. I was a single mom for like 10 days. It's a good reminder of what it means to be in a partnership and have someone to help you with kids. So I finally have been able to get back into this. But as far as these big O notation questions are concerned, I wanted to do just a couple of practice questions for all of you, and I'll answer them, no worries. Yeah. And actually, let me move some stuff. I moved some things around. I want to color after. Let me shift this over here. And they have a trick. They have a trick to figure out how to answer these questions. Of how we're not a place you felt, or just not showing up. Yeah, they look crazy. They can be a little crazy. Zealous towards the Lord. I've been told by another friend, they're not all good, not all bad. But you can't throw the baby out of the bath yet. Agreed. Where did I get to? Where did I get to? You got big O here. So we have some examples. Okay, through example 7, and actually I don't know if I can... Y'all can't see that at all. Well, that's not going to be helpful. Anyway, the trick is, and we'll do something kind of more simple. Drop everything else but the constants. Okay, example. We have O, and I'll type that in with my right hand. So we got O. N plus P. Where P is less than N divided by 2. Okay? It looks messy, but what is the big O notation for this? We're going to go ahead and drop. The reason why they say where P is less than N divided by 2, over time, P will become negligible. And so as we have bigger numbers, P will become smaller and smaller. So this would be O, N. And it will be the constant. As N gets bigger, it will take longer for this algorithm to process. I mean, the Southern Baptist can definitely be a mixed bag. Everyone is Southern Baptist. Only a matter of statistics to find gems and hard-headed folk in the same church. And is that not the case for the human being, right? So everything on whatever. There's no one pure group of people organization. Well, except for children, until they get a little bit older. But yeah, it's so large. Southern Baptist Convention, I had read, is the biggest Protestant organization that organized that there is worldwide. I did not know that. And so here we are. So of course you're gonna have folks that are making trouble. Another will do O. Beep, beep. N. Beep. And that's plus log N. Okay. So what is the big O notation for this? Or the concept for logarithm also is the same as what they describe for P over time. As N increases, the plus log N will become smaller and smaller and almost negligible. So again, this is ON. It's are used as a variable in this. What do you mean? Do you mean the language? So this is just these concepts for big O is all programming languages. But finally, what would be the big O notation for painting a wall? Can you find P, R, O, and N in the same line? What do you mean? What do you mean, Tempe? Explain yourself. What do you mean by that? Now, for painting a wall, this is something that can be more visual. We can use P. P would be paint, the amount of paint that you need, how long it'll take to finish painting a wall, how high the wall is, so H, and then the length of the wall, L. So the big O notation for that would be O, paint, H for height, and then width. So just all we're trying to find out is how long it will take for a process to be completed. And that is all I have for big O. But back to educative, not only do they have interview prep, but they have what's called, I think they call it it's like the cloud playground. Let me see. If certain words can be spelled by accident. Tempe, what are you talking about? Tempe, why are you always fucking with me? The reason why I purchased this one, cloud, let's just see all the other things that they have. And when they're talking about the cloud, they're talking about, in this case at least, different concepts in AWS. So they have all sorts of resources to teach us how to deploy. Hi Dame, how are you? How to deploy websites, applications, not trying to inhabit Mars. But I suppose they called it terraform because you're sending something out and you're wanting to manipulate with that space. It makes sense. Yeah, but terraform is also a concept where we have to configure what happens when we deploy something. Life is good. Life is good. And I didn't realize my face wasn't showing. I'm showing right now some different resources that people can use when they are tackling technical interviews. And I just signed up for a platform called Educative. It's a little pricey, but I do feel it's worth it. There are some interviews that I had gone through where they touched upon computer science fundamentals that I am now restudying because I haven't visited them in so long. But what about you? How is everything? Am I going to see you in Vegas for TwitchCon? Because my friends and I are already making plans to go. I hope that you'll be there. If not, then I'll be sad. Benjamin Button, stop it. Yes, stop it. Dame, my love, you're too sweet and too kind. But when will I get to meet you? So the last time we had TwitchCon, Dame was there. She was there. We missed each other. Can't believe it. I appreciate you. How is your honey? My honey just came back from France. He was there for work. Going to Paris. Depends on Twitch. What do you mean? What is Twitch doing to you? What did Twitch do? So what I was saying though about Educative, they have cloud labs instead of signing up with AWS. Yeah, I know. What did Twitch do? Do we have to jump Twitch? By the way, I applied for a job with Twitch as one of their devs and they immediately declined. I'm like, oh, dang, boo. Doing okay, all right. Really nice weekend. What did you do? What did you do? And what did Twitch do? Stupid Twitch. Okay, so Cloud Labs is why I signed up for the most premium version of this. For that particular company I was mentioning, they're going to ask me the details on lambdas, but they spelled it like lambda. So it's like lambdas of God. Would complicate getting a job in Twitch. I forget if they asked me if I was a streamer. No, I think they did. And I let them know that I'm an affiliate. And maybe, but I don't think that's why. I think they just want people from probably big tech companies or Ivy League colleges. This is what I think. Because they had job openings, and I'm sure they get lots of people to apply. But they're a little too fast with saying, no, we don't want you. I'm like, oh, okay. You got banned 5 times. What? Where'd you go? I didn't know that. I signed your petition at Twitch. Compliment your losses? Yeah, they can pay the thousands you lost while banned. They could send you to Vegas. Hey, Dame. We should talk on the side about that. I don't want you to guilt yourself. That's not the word. I don't want you to get yourself in trouble. I'm sorry to hear that. What? You don't even do anything bad. We do have a friend who's gotten completely banned from Twitch, though. He goes by Peanut the Kidnapper, but he has been able to sort of work around these things, and he's on a different platform now, also on YouTube, but I'm sorry to hear that. Sometimes they can get us. He was warning me a bit about, I had that mushroom gif that sort of looked phallic. It was a phallic one that was growing, and he was like, you better watch out about that one, because he got kicked for having turtles humping. It's a humping video. But someone has to tell on you for that. So you gotta snitch somewhere that you need to find and snatch out of your midst. It's probably a no from them, but still, Twitch, aww. Damn, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, you have some snitch somewhere. That Peanut found out who his snitch was. That makes me super sad. But one jab, how you? Oh, you sure? Are you sure about that? No one expects a Spanish Inquisition. One jab. We're just talking about TwitchCon. They're trying to keep Dame from being on Twitch. But maybe she can get a free pass. Okay. All right. Okay. Did they tell you? Did they not tell you why? Did they just simply say it violates our TOS, this 10-page document, and we're not going to tell you which part? Evading a ban. They do. And punches. One jab. Aw, one jab. Are you and Dame acquainted? Do you know one another? One jab is the best. He's super sweet and kind. Yeah, Dame, why they're really giving you a hard time then. Not cool. Oh, one jab was gonna go with us to TwitchCon last year. But there were lots of things going on. One jab, it'd be great. We're already making plans. Dame is gonna go to the one in Paris. But I'd love for us to see each other in Vegas. And so I'm going over currently what they have available in Educative. I do think it's worth purchasing the premium version because when you break it down month by month and everything that it entails, setting up EC2 instances, what S3 data even means. And I worked a lot with this in my digital marketing job. But it's nice now to have true fundamentals. So lambdas is what I'm going to be asked about. No, they didn't misspell it. It is with the lambda. Stupid. You knew a guy that got banned for lightly exposing himself on camera for a joke. You still find it weird when Twitch goes out of the way to ban people. Exposed how though? Did they show their nipples? I hope you can go. Yes. Dear. Okay, well, he should have known better than that. Poor guy. Yeah, we can't show nipples ever, even if it's a nip slip. Lots of people have gotten banned for that. All sorts of slip. Oh, it was an accident. This TOS stands for tits on stream, and that's what they're trying to avoid. Silly man. Yeah, we don't make those kinds of mistakes, but. So Cloud Labs allows you to create all these instances practice without having to sign up. And I think that's lovely because I'm not in the mood to sign up. AWS, if you all haven't seen, is quite a mess. We can traverse through a little bit. But I do have an account. What is it called? We'll do console. AWS console. Management console. Log back in. Let me just make sure. Hold on. Don't want to. There. Don't want to dox myself. Okay. Go. Yeah. If it was a slip, it was an accident. Gotta get my MFA. Once upon a time, women used to breastfeed their baby. Really? Hey, Dame, that's a great idea. Dame, when I hopped onto Twitch, I was breastfeeding. I never breastfed on Twitch. I didn't know that though. Similac donations. Fiji. Fiji has a phone now. So he is now answering text messages when he was not before. Okay. Everyone welcome Fiji back into the real world. I'm like, whatever, Fiji. You know, when he was here with us, his phone kept on dying because he was constantly on his phone. He was like, oh, I just need a new phone. I was like, no, because you're always on your phone. You're always on your phone talking to all these women. And when you hop into history and they go, oh, you didn't text me back. He's like, oh, but it's because something's wrong with my phone. Yeah, no, that's not why. They say that you're a hoe if by midday your phone is almost dead, and that's Fiji. What was I doing? Oh, yes, I was showing you all I have to get my MFA. It's your multi-factor authentication. Authy is the best. I'm getting my multi-factor authentication for AWS so I can show you all what it looks like. But Fiji, how have you been? What kind of phone did you get? Don't say iPhone. I am a hater. Let me see. It is Amazon Web Services. Okay, so you use Authy. Burn your phone battery scripture. Okay, that's different. Okay. That's holy. That's not like Fiji. You're being holy, good sir. Ooh, so that's still doxing. Hold on. That is doxing. Hold the phone. Not Fiji's phone. It's dead. Oh, Dame, I love Dame. Oh, by the way, you all, for those of you who don't know, Dame is also an Oracle reader and a very, very confident, proficient Oracle reader. You all will thoroughly enjoy this. Oh my gosh. Fiji, I would not categorize you as being holy. Just simply whole. Let's take off the LY and add an E. Yeah, it might be small enough for y'all not to see. I know. I'll just put my face up there. I'll just put my face up there and then you can't see my name. Because it's not good. Not a good idea to expose ourselves. Remember? No. We are not exhibitionists here. Let me see. And get my face. Where's my face? Where's my face? This one. There we go. Good. Oh, right there. If I put me right there, you all won't get my name and social security. Perfect. Okay, so talking about that random Sunday of the month now. Nice. One Sunday this month left. So if you now her queue gets real long, all right? So as soon as she starts doing that, you have to sign up ASAP. Everyone is not only is it her reading your oracle, the community is so warm and uplifting. And this is not to say that other tarot oracle readers on Twitch are not. All I have to say is that it's just a very different vibe in there where it feels like a community reading. Everyone is together. Where's people only gone and say yes. And those streams are very thoughtful, and everyone that you'll meet, you're like, oh, you're cool. No, you're cool. And then we hug each other. But I have hopped into other tarot streams, and it's a little cold in there. You know, they don't really pay attention to you unless you pay some money, and then you can be like pouring your heart and soul out, and then no one cares, and you're like, you know what? Maybe I'll just go do my own reading. Maybe I just go pray. Okay, so what's important here? We have AWS has a lot of special things. I know, you're cool. You like games, I like games. Let's be best friends. Okay, see, Code Commit is their own repository. So if you have any sort of, typically you would put in here your templates for deployment, but you can also put actual code as if you're using GitHub or GitLabs. You do free reads live. Yes, it's so sweet of you. I know. For those, and we have one more friend, her name is Sony Bologna. When she reads for folks, she has said the same. She has found that others who are trying to lure you in with, I'll give you love advice and it's only going to cost this much. There's just something inauthentic about it. And you're like, myrrh. So I appreciate finding fellow readers who give a damn or give a dame. I'll show you an example, okay? And then a little oh, I was empty. That's my mistake. Anyway, just imagine, as you would GitHub or GitLab. Now the pipeline. And I know it gets a little messy, okay? This is how you set up the deployment process. You see that this has failed. The reason why is because I don't have an actual repository in there, but this is where you set up everything. We're going to create a pipeline in here. We're going to give it a name. We're going to call it give a dame. Okay? And it's going to create for you a role. What this role is the permissions that one has to make changes, to add, to delete, all sorts of resources that are in AWS. Okay? You bought some cars on your Canadian. Okay, send me a pic. Yes, that would be lovely. Please. Speaking of new cards, and actually let me go hit next here. Whoop. Okay, your source provider depends on what you want to do. Now, like I mentioned before, and right after this, I want to show y'all, I got new cards in the mail. Code commit is what I mentioned earlier. Where is the repository of code that you have? Yeah, you can even just host things inside of S3. Bitbucket is another version that uses Git. We got GitHub, okay, and I don't see why GitLab is not on here. That's all right. So where is your repository? I'm going to say code commit, okay? What is the repository name? We would typically name it what we named this pipeline. Give a dame. Now this branch here, what's happening in this pipeline? When you push to the branch of this repository, and the branch is an extension of this source code. Normally we'd call it either staging or production. Staging is the test branch. Every time a piece of some code is pushed to it, we are going to set off this pipeline. Something will happen. Something offensive term used against someone digging for donation on Twitter. Or a beggar, a bit beggar. Bits for the poor. Okay, so we can call this one staging. Okay. And watch cloud watch events, that is going to detect whether or not there's a change. For the poor. Please, sir, one more finger. Okay. And code build. You pick the region that is associated with you. The default is usually North Virginia, and these are where the different servers are. What is the name? You continue to try to keep the same name so you didn't get confused. Yes. One more finger. Don't get confused. Give a name. I highly recommend that. If you don't do that, you will get confused. Okay. Add environment variables. What is this talking about? As we're templating whatever it is we're trying to add to this pipeline, we want it to trigger when we have this variable within. So from this variable, I'm going to call it staging for now. Within my templating system, within my staging build process, and I'm going to name it that. So hold on. Yeah, so build. So it's the build staging. Within there's going to be a set of instructions with what to do. Okay. Okay, we don't need to worry about deploy for now. Skip. Yes, we do. Okay, and then this is the give a dame pipeline that we set up. So just create it. Go, go, go. Shoo, 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 shoo. Go, wait, wait, wait. Okay, now here it's going to automatically trigger. Okay, you want to go ahead and stop that because I didn't set up anything just yet. So we're going to stop execution because we have nothing with it, and we'll walk through that together later. Stop. Okay, it must have stopped on its own. So since it has nothing, it's going to fail. Okay, but from here we are going to edit what's within. So you're going to hit the edit button. When we edit these stages, we're going to add a front end and a back end. Girl, you use... Yeah, I love Danny Sogan. You talking about Danny Sogan? I have his whole... Look. I don't want to dox myself again, but all Danny Sogan. And so when I upload it to YouTube, then it's like, you have copywritten material, but then they release it because he allows us to use his music for free. Okay, so I want to show y'all just real quick. I'm going to hop into the tarot. It's not actually tarot, though. Hold on. Ugh. Put that here. Look at my stash, girl. Look at my stash. We have some new cards known as the I Ching. Put that there. Ugh. What is I Ching? Confucius and his cohort decided to put together a book. It's called the Book of Changes. And it's with all sorts of... Move that. It's with all sorts of great truths, and this was before Christ. When the Jesuit missionaries came to China, they grabbed the I Ching and realized there were so many commonalities with the Old Testament and the I Ching. And I'll show you. So this was a Kickstarter, and it's so beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna open this up. It starts off with, I think I had mixed it up because our girl Stony Baloney helped me break them in. Very, very lovely. And we can actually get a little closer. Starts off with the creator, the next earth. And the way that you read these, you can read them the way you do with tarot. It's a certain number of cards, but there are multiple meanings, not just the word that's on the front, you read into the imagery. This symbol here is known as a gua. Some more images in teaching. Flashbacks to reading judges. Yes, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. They have a community that went ahead and threw out all of the information. Let me see. Hold on. See, I Ching. And they break down everything. On the Korean flag, again, this is called a gua. It's two symbols. One represents yin, one represents yang. When it's divided down the middle, and I'll show you a little more closely. So it's three little notches, okay? The top is yin, the bottom is yang, but even within, a solid line is yin, the broken lines are yang. Yin is the leadership force, the light force. The yang is, I hate to say dark force, but chaos, fellowship. If you can think of a horse and the way that their societies are structured, there's a singular male horse where the mares will follow, so the female horses. In the I Ching, when there is a lack of yin, it's all followers, it's just chaos. So they have to have a leader. So they are equal in nature and they need each other. If there is just only yin energy or leadership energy but no followers, nothing gets done. So the I Ching, they have an I Ching Christian society, and they follow the same methods that the Jesuit missionaries had set up, because the Book of Changes, all that was missing was a conduit between the Creator and Earth. And what Confucius and his colleagues had made quite clear, they do not yet have a perfect image between both. And it will be a holy creature, the most humble of creatures, that embodies the will of heaven perfectly on earth. So that's why the Chinese were very open to understanding this Christian concept, but also still able to keep the I Ching and all of the truths within. And that is a very Saul of Tarsus, Paul way of doing mission work, is to take what they already see in the culture, find the great truths, and add where Christ is. Confucius is your life guide. Confucius, I was listening also to it. It was an audiobook of the Book of Changes, and whenever people follow, and they're all very straightforward. Humility, listening to the oppressed, keeping the oppressed in mind. This was mostly meant for those in charge, and Confucius and his team were concerned with every time there was a new person in power, if they don't follow this way, it's going to take us into a state of chaos. So again, with the yin and the yang. So the Korean flag, and I'll break this down for you all, it's so lovely. I didn't know that they had the gua in the symbols there. So Korean flag, gua. Okay. The Koreans are they are very spiritual people. I love them so much. Let me go back to the display. Annie Banani baby, what are you doing? Annie Banani, you are such a wonderful being of light. Okay, let me see. Let's get into this. So sky, this first gua, that's all yin. Okay, all leadership. This actually means creator, not sky. Okay, and right diagonally from it, you see how all these lines are broken up. I'll actually get a little bit closer in here. That's earth, water, and then fire. But we got yin and the yang. And again, not necessarily positive, not necessarily negative. It's just two forces that need one another. And I know my face is not there. Looking at the concept of this sort of way after playing Dark Souls, I see, because humanity in the games represented by darkness. Concept of unity in the darkness as well as longevity. Thank you. Getting details of meaning and things. We love backstories. And now the reason why I mentioned this is because I had known to be to be Christian is also a very Korean thing. Koreans, the Korean country, are one of the few that weren't forced into Christianity. A Confucius scholar was tasked with learning about Western technologies and culture and went to China to procure information. They happened to come across a Bible, perused it with his buddies. So that stuff makes sense. But at that time, it was a Confucius period where there was a caste system. Folks were poor, rich, and for the most part, you don't jump classes unless you marry into it. But he proposed a radical concept that he grabbed from the Bible. We are all equal. Not only are we all equal, so is the king. So is the emperor of China. They will also have to answer to heaven. So the Eastern Asian community, even in the ancient days, always believed in a singular creator. And the emperors, it was in their best interest to follow the will of heaven and take care of everyone around them. So they were stewards of this world. It was represented as such. But this scholar took it a little further. We are even equal to the emperor of China. So this started to catch on. Bibles were produced for everybody. Education skyrocketed. The status of women and children skyrocketed. And then Japan took over. And we know that for the most part, the Buddhists, Confucius, and Shinto is their predominant religions. We were pretty downtrodden, but when the Japanese soldiers started to force us to worship their Shinto gods, was there an uprising, a Christian uprising against them. There was this new renewal of faith with our country. Because if you go all the way back to the Old Testament especially, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, even Daniel, we are not going to bow to anybody. And in our community, bowing to each other is a great sign of respect. But as far as worship is concerned, you're not going to tell us who to bow to. So then there was an uprising. America came to help, and Koreans are very grateful for it. So our attitude towards mission work, spreading the gospel, well, Dame, I appreciate you. And Annie, I don't mean to keep babbling on. I just really love it, you know. I appreciate that for the Korean people, it's an invitation to love, invitation to have gratitude, but God had always existed with us. We just never had that conduit, Christ, to put it all together. What the I Ching was waiting for that perfect being that was both God and human. And the Chinese people, along with the Korean people, really took to him easily. Now, for the Chinese, there is an I Ching master who was there during the fall of China and had rewritten the I Ching for Americans to understand, because a lot of it was translated by Jesuit missionaries who, while they had the greatest intentions, are not Chinese. He was the dean for a Catholic school before the government had shut it down, and he went ahead, fled to Hawaii, and rewritten the translations of the I Ching for us to understand. So I have been going through his works. I really love it. You love how Japan ended up being blending Christianity. They do way later on. But it's good to be passionate in what you like and sharing, teach others. Right? I'll do some dame, my love. But so we have all sorts of things, all sorts of different meanings behind all of these cards. And when I read it out for our girl Stony, what was lovely was that she had received something very similar to the Three of Wands. Now we're out in the wilderness, and where do we go from here? And I likened that to when Moses first ran away and he was wandering through the wilderness, but had to go back through the wilderness, and this time, not alone. Oh, all this is generated through AI, they said, but they have the artist's touch. They took it. There's sometimes little things about faces that I don't really like, but otherwise I've been waiting a long time for them. We even have biting, and the teeth are awful. Okay, but so all of the different meanings behind these two symbols on top of one another adds a greater depth to card reading, at least in this case, than some of my traditional tarot. And where are the 7 hands gonna be? What do you mean? What's him in? They can't. That's right. Yes. So I actually have a few pictures, and I wanted to show y'all. Let me see. Hopefully, I think that it was uploaded to my Google Drive, but I have been messing around with AI to do some of the Bible characters. And let me see, it's Sunday, May 14th. Okay, so let's see if I can grab them actually. Let me get into the photos. So May 14th, I've been messing around. Okay, and I tried to do some things where hands were in it, but gosh, it was awful. Was he wondering? Like, I know, ew. I'm like, why y'all look like that? Okay, let me see. This is 11. Okay, let me see. Get into the display. So, I want to do Adam and Eve. The way that I, from taking biology, know that the first people were very black. The original people, scientists have confirmed, originated out of Africa. Okay, but if you look here, look at his fingers. What happened? Her arm is like melding with his. I'm like, oh, beautiful. But then I wanted to make that fruit as appealing as possible. So I had put in the prompt dragon fruit. But I wanted to have a snake in the background. And it didn't really look at see that, like, what kind of snake is that? And he has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 knuckles. I don't know what this is right here. Okay, but they look good. It's not the kind of oneness that's pushing me your BF. There was a third girl. Damn. Yeah, no, AI's all over the place. This is supposed to be Cain after killing his brother. So in the prompts I put farmer, blood. This is oh. It's not as beautiful as I would have hoped, and like I don't understand why it looks kind of scaly too. And AI was just kind of all over the place. Now the ones without hands though, I thought were beautiful. So I have this as Eve. I try to put in a serpent, and it actually did something with her cheeks was kind of weird. So it was a lot of playing around. They even have her necklace kind of blending into her skin. But this one I really liked, and you can kind of see a centipede-looking snake in the background. I don't know if that's kind of okay. Alright, so there we go. Made him ugly? Oh no, it made it really Oh, AI is being a troll. And even this here too. I kind of like it, but the snake looks weird. You can obviously tell it was AI generated, and I didn't really like it, so it was Adam by itself. I tried to do something, and this was a little bit better. Okay, his finger is cut off, but I was kind of okay with this one. That was the closest. His thumb is a little crazy. His thumb is like melding into the fruit. Okay, I liked this one too because it looks kind of dragon-like, and hands aren't too bad. Okay, I like them a lot. I really love them. Now this is supposed to be King David as when he was king. I did one where he was younger, but I tried to put Bathsheba in the back. And the bath. It's nice that they have this guy over here. I didn't do that on purpose, but I imagine that's his friend that he killed so that he can get a hold of Bathsheba. So we have this too. This was still a little bit more playing around. I don't know why they put this stuff on his face. I didn't ask for that, but I just left it. Now this is supposed to be young David before David hits up Goliath, and they went ahead and put tattoos on his face. Not sure why. That wouldn't be in an ancient Israelite custom. Tattoos are not allowed biblically from the Old Testament. And again, these are Old Covenant laws for his ancient people, okay? Not today. It is, it's cute. Yeah, it's cute. You know, maybe it's war paint, okay? But that's supposed to be David, young David. I really like this one also. And Eyewitness was talking about scars from his battle with lions and bears. So I'm like, maybe it could be that. It can kind of suit, but this side right here just looks a little too intentional to be a battle scar. So we get the soldiers in the background, maybe his brothers. I think, yeah, they would be. Now, I made this, though. And girl, these aren't actual tattoos. These are, what do you call? Let me see. I don't know if I showed y'all. So I'm trying to mess around with the idea of what it would look like to have a sleeve. So I purchased some, the what do you call? What are they called? This is the false tattoos. The bear was a tattoo artist. Yeah. But I'm trying to mess around with seeing what it'll look like, because by the end of the year I asked my husband if I could get a sleeve. I want a big one. I want a big old sleeve just going all the way up. And I want it to go pew, like a prison tat. Now, this is who I imagine Joseph, Jesus' father, to be. To break tattoos a few months back. Send me pics. And send me pics of your new deck, too. Dame, do you use tarot also, or no? I'd imagine you'd be a really strong tarot reader also. But if not, at least for me, I do feel kind of boxed in to meetings when I'm reading tarot. Whereas Oracle is sort of more free range. But this I put as Mother Mary, older, at Calvary, upset. Young Mother Mary. And it was so hard to get her hands to not look crazy. I wanted her to have her hand on her belly. But this is how I imagine desert folks in ancient Israelite times to look. Okay. Not sure why, I just don't like the vibe. Interesting. You like the structure of tarot? Because you like structure. You like order. She do got fingernails on her fingernails. Ew. But yeah, Dame, okay. Dame is a very free spirit. I wonder if that's why. Because it does. It's like it kind of boxes us in. You can have tarot readings, but you don't give them. Hey, you know what your spirit knows, Yeah, Oracle is very free. Very free, and there's not a lot of room for others to go, wait, that's not how I see it. And you're like, but this is the way I see it. And so this one was okay. I like this face better, but this hand looks better. I don't know what to do with it. Yet her thumb looks just like another index finger, or even a pinky. Yeah. Now this I thought of as Mary Magdalene. The time that she met Christ at first. I also think of her as the accused woman. People try to say that it's both her and Mary Magdalene, but it's not confirmed. Okay. And actually, this is software. We in software. Now, this is my favorite. This is the first, when I first hopped on to AI, messing with pictures, I really love the story of Rahab. And for those of you who don't know who Rahab is a Canaanite woman, a prostitute, who encountered two Israeli soldiers spying on the land of Canaan. And she was in a place called Jericho. And she had heard of them. She had heard of their God and how he split the sea. And she was concerned for herself and her family. Okay. She's pretty much, she do look blind, that's true. There's something wrong with your eye, girl. Anyway, Jesus would have fixed that because he heals the blind. When people argue with me on tarot, you butt heads with them literally like I'm about to. So I imagine Rahab to be a very beautiful, darker woman. And again, because this is during the beginning of civilization, biblically, I imagine that she would be a black woman. And red, I chose red because when she let them down and when she marked her home for when they'd come, she used red scarf to prevent them from attacking her home where she was housing her family members. Okay, and that's it. Wait, no, is it? This is the last one. I was trying to do something a little more comic book style. And if you can see here, she got about 1, 2, 3 feet. It looks almost like 3.5 feet. But don't worry about that part. The part that's really lovely, and Temp pointed this out too, is that she's taller in this case. And she was speaking with them on the roof of her home, trying to make sure that her family can be safe. They said, we can promise that you'll be safe. Make sure to mark your home with that red scarf, and do not exit your home when we arrive. Also, don't tell anyone we were here or all promises are lost. Just a few people. Yeah, just another leg. But she could have been more well fed. The land of Canaan was supposed to be a plentiful land, and she could have been a lot healthier, whereas the ancient Israelites were in a state of wandering and the things that AI can do. I wasn't able to do too much, though, with the prompts that I was given. I was trying to kind of copy what other pictures there were and sort of mess with that, but no problem, Dame. Midnight, oh my goodness. Dame, I appreciate you for stopping in and chippy chippy. And I hope that everything works out with Twitch. I'm really sorry to hear that they're messing with you, but I look forward to seeing some pictures, and I hope that we can see each other. Yes, happy time zones. Sweet. Well, you go. Have the best sheeples. Give your love from us, all the American loves. But okay. So now that we're back into this part of the stream, I have some new material I'd like to use. I have some coloring pencils. I have some coloring pencils, and they're a soft core, and I want to use them to continue with my coloring. Let me bring this over here. Get sometimes there. Beautiful. Okay. Stony. I was just talking about you, my love. I was just talking about you. I was showing folks the I Ching. But you make sure you focus on work. You're cute. And I saw your messages. I've been meaning to get back. I'm gonna make human AI by coloring people's hands like thermal. You did. You heard me in the ether, girl. I appreciate you. You're so sweet. Yeah, I was just talking about how lovely the reading was when we were doing the I Ching together. And also, I've been calling it I Ching. Sony corrected me and said I Ching. So that's my bad. How is it? Well, I mean, she's Asian too. But I'm like that side of Asia. Eastern Asian. How come I don't know? Oh. Yeah. She felt me in the ether. So, I've been trying to mess around. I got these new coloring pencils, and we'll just sort of try to do what we were doing with the markers. The markers, they're okay, but I found a combination of them both is nice. Right, let me see. Let me put this here. But Stony, how is work today? How is everything? How's everything, my love? You're so pretty. Y'all, if y'all don't know, Stony is like super babe. Stony is like very physically a beautiful woman. I'm like, oh. She also has on her Instagram, her workout progress. Slow day. Time to study. Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Right. So, yeah, she's also a very talented tarot and oracle reader. We were just talking with our girl Dame. She is also an oracle reader, very, very strong one. Talking about differences with oracle and tarot. Okay, let's see. What are we gonna do here? We'll do green. Well, let's focus on some of the leavies. But what's been going on at work? And also, if you just wanted to pop in and say hello and head back out, I do not mind. Let's start with light, actually. We'll do some light stuff. Do light, because I've read that you must start off with light. I have no background with art at all. Okay? I'm just reading tutorials. Watching videos. They say to keep all of your color pencils super sharp, and when you want to blend, you start off with light colors. And you can clean it up after you begin with light. So yang first. No, I'm sorry. Yin first. Then yang. So we'll do all that. We'll go through all the leaves. I found that when I'm focusing on just one, it takes too long. I want to get past this. Strange background. Everything I remained in school was wild and rule bucking. Like what? Give me an example. when I was younger. I was coloring an apple, and I colored it blue. And my teacher said that that's not what apples are colored. But I was like, can't I just color it whatever I want to color it? She didn't like me very much. She told my dad I was arrogant. But my mom and dad always made sure that any creativity I felt, they honored. In other words, I was quite neglected. They let me do whatever, and whatever they found, whatever mess I made, they didn't care. Girl, no. This is a temporary tattoo. I'm trying to see what looks good. So we got some flowers here. Get my little bird. And I have a whole array of them though. Anything that's too dark, I noticed, doesn't look very good, but I got all these things. I have found that flowers look really nice. But I want something more meaningful, so I'm mostly just testing out colors. Yeah, girl. Because you read anyway, you know, you be reading on stream, and we're going to set that up. You be reading on stream, it's kind of fun to put these little things. Makes you look gangster. Makes it look like you have street cred. Yeah, so all these different flowers, and they look really nice. But again, anything too dark does not look good. Yes, and they're really cheap. They're like $8. I get you some. And they're all over the place. Now there are some brands though that are not very good. Whomever created these ones with birds, the one that I have here, for some reason, and you'll probably see them on Amazon. They don't really turn out that good. They don't come off well. Don't you like it? But this will be the next one that I want to wear. I want to see what some lighter colors look like. But girl, what you studying? What are you studying? I was telling folks about some of my studies as well. Big O notation and programming. Some of the questions that they've been throwing at me. Sometimes I was stumped, and I'm trying to mitigate that. I don't want to get stumped. Take a class where you're supposed to learn Photoshop. Just to make it abstract. There's a lot of negative. Fire colors made you think of blobs and negative space from the folks I see. Never really understood the rules you broke. I don't know what I did wrong. Aren't I supposed to like make something pretty? Personal trainer and nutrition goes, oh, good for you. Oh, apples, lemons, you'd like to have a reading. I'd love to give you a reading. Let's do it. It is currently art, and that's fine. But I do readings anytime. But before that, apples, lemons, we should speak to one another. What is it that you'd like to talk about? I don't like to do a lot of guessing, because all that my card shows is likely a bit of what's been going on. A love reading. Sure. But it will likely have to do more with what's going on in here. If that's okay with you. We don't do much future. Once in a while, future could kind of come up. That's amazing, Stony. Personal trainer, that is so you. And we all need to eat better. We don't have enough good food out there. Okay, so take a look at that link real quick. Yes. Unless you want me to pick something, but if love is what's happening in your life and that's something that you're most interested in, are you dealing with a breakup? Are you interested in someone who you don't feel reciprocates your feelings? Are you just simply feeling lonely? Are you feeling unloved outside but loved inside? Loved outside, not loved inside. What's going on? Tell me more about your situation. You're not sure if he's interested. Cool. Oh, this is something that I have been talking with my friends with as far as trying to sense whether or not someone else cares for you. That dabbles into black magic, and we're not going to do that. We don't want to go into that person's energy without their consent. But what we can do is try to guide you in a direction where he is no longer the holder of your heart in a way that's unhealthy, okay? So take a look at our stash. I'll send you that link. You can take a look at the link, or we can just look at the stash. But I feel like I really love the Empyrean. The Empyrean is fun. When it comes to things that are a little difficult, we have what's called the Children of Letha, and they're quite lovely because they're poetic, talks a lot about animal instinct, similar to Rider Waite, but with just a little twist. So passion, it's very passionate. But if you need to hear hard truths, Empyrean is it. We have others that do have more to do with unrequited love, and that is our Giseng cards. This is a Korean geisha. The string lights turn off and it doesn't turn off. It's not like a refrigerator. It's just on the whole time because we conserve energy in this house sometimes. Okay, let's see. So I'm gonna go ahead and use Giseng, and then I'll throw in one Empyrean. Okay? That's what I feel. My heart feels this. Okay, gonna go grab that. Go. Don't worry, Stony, my love. We will see each other on Friday. You enjoy yourself. Happy studies, okay? Model virus Argentina is actually celebrating. You know, when you were a kid, did you ever try to catch the light in the refrigerator being on? Put this here, because I did. I always try to catch that light. Before we do any true readings, I would love to, apples, lemons, this is the first time that you're here, everything that I try to listen to is from the Holy Spirit, nothing else, just to be sure that we're all okay, because God really cares about us, okay? And I imagine everything that God does is just so fast we can't see it. So I'm going to ask from you to give me some numbers, but first we're going to go ahead and give this to God. Put that here. And give me just a second. BRB, because I got to grab something. Okay. Just figured out where the light came from. I find that the light is switched and messing with the IC. Okay, so back here, all right, and let's move some of this. Let's move some of this clutter. All right, that's my mistake. Eek. Okay, so apples, lemons for you. I grabbed a love kombucha, but also for Jesus. They call kombucha living water, which I thought was very interesting. As hold on, it will become the face of the streets silly. So, they call kombucha living water, but he also calls himself living water, which I think is so lovely. So first, we pour one for Jesus, because all who come to him will no longer be thirsty. Then one for you. One for everybody that we're gonna meet. And then one for me. Okay. And then finally we're gonna light a candle. Look, it's like a not real fire, it's a prong. See that? Get real close. Right. You're thirsty. Thirsty for Jesus is what I hear. Alright, it's this one. We'll go a little closer. Move this to the side. So, the Giseng cards have, let me double check. I'm gonna scare a small dinosaur. Or cows. So these are, and apple lemons. We have 50 in this first. These are all the most popular Gisengs of Korean history. Evie, oh my goodness. So good to see you, my love. Oh, how are you, babe? What's been happening? Honey love. You're so this is exactly how, you know, the way Evie types is exactly how she speaks. Like that. Evie, how is it going? So you're gonna pick for me apple lemons, 3 numbers, 1 through 50. Any order, okay? As I shuffle. Please. Evie, what's been going on? How are you? How are you? What are you doing? How have you been doing? 9, 11, 6. Lovely, lovely. Thank you for that. As a unicorn, you speak a lot slower than you think. Well, that's how it is. That's how it is. That is a sign of intelligence, by the way. Evie, what are you doing? Evie had the most beautiful... She had the most beautiful compilation of love. Speaking of love, we're doing something that involves love. Evie, babe. Thank you. I'm well. Ben was gone for some time. He was in France for work, and now he's back, and now I get to not be a single mama anymore. Oh no, Evie. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, girl, 10 days. I did not miss the single mama life, I'll tell you that much. But how's everything with you? How is your son? How is your love? What have you been doing? And how is he liking his school? I know the school is over. But you like the school. Is everybody nice? Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. 10, 11. And I should have grabbed 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, wherever we have a reverse card, that's a blockage of, or something we have not yet released. I did have to use some corporal punishment, but not very much. And the reason why is because when he gets hit, he thinks it's okay to hit. So I actually really have to hold that back. And if it does happen to happen when he's throwing a really massive fit, I have to be careful. But first grade, oh my goodness. Not good. Kids do what they see, and so that's what he saw, and then what a mess, you know? Such a mess. So, apple lemons, and we're doing a reading right now. So it's centered around love, and we'll see what comes of it. Let's get a little closer. Okay, so for this first one, I know. I know, the man. I don't know, Evie, if you believe in corporal punishment. Okay, so this is what's been going on, okay? And it's something that you did express. Unrequited love. In this case right here, this particular woman, what I remember is that she has had relations with this person, but can tell that they don't really care about them on a deeper level, and it keeps her up at night, okay? But it's for lack of a better word, a booty call. Is it just for them to satisfy their lusts, or do they care about me? But a lot of times in our hearts, we just know. So I can just tell you, without even pulling out any cards, if you don't feel confident that someone cares for you, no matter who it is, whether it's romantic or familial, if it's a friendship, your intuition is more spot on than any cards that one can pull. But so if you can feel like someone does not have true affection for you, That's what this card means. And that's something that you, because it was upside down, you can't quite reconcile with. You're not ready to let go of that idea or that person, which is why you're here. You feel like you made it too far, soft a feather. Now you can't even watch horror films because I get you. Me too. I cannot. You just watch horror films with no sound. That's stupid. Just don't watch it. When it's like scary scenes, I shut my eyes like this when I know I'm about to be. So I just make it more, I try to look through my lashes. Okay. Oh, unrequited love. Okay. And that is 12. You so beautiful, babe. I love the recent picture of you. Why are you such a babe? Lizzie Kaplan, I don't know what you're talking about. Stop it, Evie. Stop it. How is work? How is work to? Are they being kind to you? So dreams different in the same bed is the theme for this card. Okay, and I'll flip it up so that we can see it a little bit better, right? In the late Joseon dynasty, Hanji, a government of this particular area, stayed in Cheonggu for 15 days. On the third day of his stay, he stretched out his feet while asleep and felt someone else's skin. There was Kangmei, the most popular gisang in Cheonggu. Kangmei said she came secretly under the district magistrate's orders, and if Hanji does not take care of her, she would be punished. Hanji said it's not a difficult thing, and he rolled up the bedding to make Kangmei easy to come in. They slept together for 13 days, so they were together 2 weeks. But nothing happened between them. On the day Hanji left Cheonggu after 15 days, he saw Kangmei crying and asked, "Do you still have affection for me?" Kangmei answered, "What kind of affection do you mean? I'm just crying because it was boring, even though I am a gisang." So this man, Hanji, promised to take care of her and did not fulfill this promise. This card, how we apply this knowledge, this is an unattainable love or a business relationship. This shows that love cannot be achieved against someone's will. Okay, it's cold reality of having a dream by taking a chance, but nothing happens. So we're into this. What's really trying to say is that this person that you're focused on has a very different outlook on what they are wanting to achieve in this time in their life, and you are focused on this person, but perhaps it's not in a way that is only affection, but maybe it would be beneficial for you to be with this person, while the reciprocant of your love does not think it a smart move, at least not right now. But for you, I challenge whether or not your idea of your relationship with them is solely to do with your affections, or if there's some benefit that you can get from it. So that's what it seems like. It's more of like a business transaction. A lot of couples get together because to them it just makes sense. And I encourage that you really take a look at what it is you'd want from this person, if it is something that's true or not. And perhaps that'll help you set this up right and learn to let that go. So for the second now. So what do we see here? This is a soldier, okay? And from the looks of it, it looks like we're trying to pass blame onto somebody else. Not sure about that. But let me catch up a little bit. Work is amazing. Good. Glad to hear that. Is it like? What's it not like? So it's not like working. Yeah, right, fair. It's a crazy customers, okay. So everyone's chill day. Good, good, good. You said you can't make someone fall in love with someone else. This is true. This is exactly what Jeannie said. Okay. Jay-Z and Beyonce. I wonder if... I feel like that Jay-Z really does love Beyonce. Sometimes for Beyonce, I think she didn't realize how much she loved him until he cheated on her. Okay? But yes, Evie, they set up... We were able to hit our goal for PETA a little bit more than what I anticipated. Was able to close that, and I found this particular charity, and if I may, I'd like to go over what they do. They make sure that not only do children find homes, but that couples who are trying to adopt have all the help they can get. So they will help you through the process, even try to cover fees for these children. And I just think that that's amazing. And at the same time as these children stay with them, they make sure that they shower them with love and affection. Who's to say that they're doing this? I try to make sure that they were vetted properly, but otherwise I just trust. I'm just going to trust that they're doing what they say they're going to be doing. Did you tell Christina that you nailed your dono goal for PETA? I'd let Christina know. No, I didn't tell her that we nailed it, but I did tell her that I was doing it, and she was quite touched. She was quite touched by that. We still have a good number of friends that work for PETA, and I don't want to... That's one thing about... We are told not to show that off. But in terms of being happy about it, I should share. Now, we're trying to point blame. That's what it seems like, at least. There's not really much I can gather from this. There's a reason why the cops are here. We don't know why, but let's hop in. Okay. We have a disadvantageous position, it says. It's also still in the Chosun period. Takmuna is the name of this woman, became a maidservant of the government of Jinhei, where her first husband's plot of treason was uncovered. She was beautiful. So someone else took her as his concubine. However, Yun Unro, who was a center of power at the time, heard of Yi Chung's concubine as beautiful and took her away. Okay? So Yun Unro, who gathered wealth by exploiting ordinary people, built a house for Takmune and seemed to be nice to her. But after a few years, he quickly became tired of her. It was pulled upside down. We are unable to let go of the idea that we're just in two different parts of our lives. This is likely more of an advantageous relationship than it is a loving relationship. And we are unable to let that idea go. Okay. So, after years, he quickly became tired of her, got a new concubine, and mistreated her. When Yun Unro tried to extort the house he'd given her, Takmune visited the magistrate, the justice of Chosun, and accused Yun of the immoral market behaviors he had committed. However, the king did not believe Yun's suspicion and punished her for her accusation. Her trial lasted 6 months, but in the end, Yun went unpunished. So in this case here, it says no matter how unfair you feel and complain, it will be disadvantageous for you. So, moral of the story, don't try to get someone in trouble even if they did something wrong just to get back at them. And the reason why she did this is because who she was with promised to take care of her, then tried to kick her out of the home he provided for her after he grew tired of her. Which is very interesting in this case because that person, these are two different people, but because of that advantageous position, being taken care of was this Giseng's goal. She was able to achieve that goal. He's doing something. He's like, I don't know about all that. I don't know if you are crying wolf right now. But because that help was removed, now she's trying to get him in trouble for it. So this relationship is very shaky. It's not built on a foundation of true love and trust. And after they lift their hand of protection or whatever it is that you're trying to achieve from this union, it's better to keep your grievances to yourself. When we break relationships with friends or family or lovers, what's the first thing that we do? We go vent to somebody about what they have done wrong. And unless you're speaking with someone who is there for you to vent and reconcile whatever these emotions are, if you're just trying to sully someone's name, not good. It'll end up being your downfall, not theirs, which will make things more frustrating. Now finally, oh no, what's happening? So this is what has been happening. This is what's going on now, and this is how we move forward, okay? Not necessarily the future, but this is just sort of what to look out for. You should vent a lot on people you don't like. You know, it's different, Mr. Navad. I think if sometimes we just have to. It's really great to vent to someone who doesn't know that third party, so they can just sort of help you through it. Even not saying any names can be helpful, but if you need to say a name, that's fine too. But it just depends on what you're trying to do. You trying to get over these emotions, or are you just needing to express your opinion? That's fine. But if you're trying to make them look bad, not fine. Never. Keep that stuff to yourself. If someone's being shady, you don't like their behavior, unless they are actually hurting a lot of people and they will continue to hurt people, keep it to yourself because it makes you look bad. That response can be quite healthy. So let's move on quicker. I agree. I think it's better to speak about our grievances. but in a respectful way, not just to make them look bad. Facts, 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 and facts. So, King Taejong Yi Bangwan became the third king of Chosun. So we keep talking about Chosun because Chosun is the most prosperous dynasty in the Korean culture. That's why there were a lot of kisangs there. They were able to achieve power in their way, in their own special ways. He tried to establish a public sentiment and social discipline to strengthen his royal authority. At that time, Giseng Gukhwa became an appropriate example. She was Jojeon's concubine, but when his heart left and abandoned her, Gukhwa committed a false accusation as a vengeance that Jojun was plotting conspiracy against the king. After the government scrutinized Jojeon, Gyeonghwa's false report was revealed, and King Taejong ordered cruel punishment, tying stones to a living person and drowning him or her in the river. In the case of Gukhwa, she was not only exemplified the discipline of society in early Chosun, but also served as a starting point for the suppression of women. So, same deal. These are all different people, but it's the same concept. We have a relationship that's not quite suited. Now we have someone trying to sully their reputation. And then what happens when you do? Okay? And that's something, if this is what's happening now, and you're talking to people who maybe know the person that you're talking about and you're making them look bad, you have to keep in mind, and this is showing that this is something you're not keeping in mind, slander just does not work. Don't do it. They call that fruits of the flesh. Okay? If you don't have something nice to say about someone, what's the golden rule? Don't say anything at all. Okay? Now, you're going to give me one more number, okay? Apples, lemons. And this hopefully shows just a little bit of what's going on in your heart that we can try to push you in a better direction. Now you have choose between 1 out of 44. Just give me one number. All right. No slander. No slander. We don't slander others, okay? Just one number out of 44. We're gonna go with one card from the Empyrean. Okay, and they're very lovely. They give you hard but easily digestible truths. Okay, involves from that orange carefully. What? Wait, how do you move on from a supervisor at work? What do you mean? Are you involved with the supervisor? Physically? Are you dating somebody at work? Apple lemons, if you're still there, one number out of 44. Oh no, I messed that up. Bad, bad. Bad. Yeah. Don't you lie to me. I know you, you're thirsty. Oh no, we're good, we're good. Ah, okay, I didn't mess that up at all. Ha ha ha! Beat gold. Ew, just so silly. And apple lemons, if you are not there and this was enough for you, I would love to conclude this and get back to my coloring. But if you are, let me know so that I can give you a conclusion. I will shuffle as I wait. I would love to. I just want to color. I see lots of colors that need to be used. Let me give this a 7 shuffle, and if you're not there, we're gonna shut this down. I don't know if they have a Stargate coloring book. We can check. Let's check. Could ask ChatGPT. Y'all got some Stargate coloring books? Give me a link, and it'll be like, I don't have links. I can't give links. I just peruse the internet, but can't tell you from where I got any of these sources. Don't put it in your essay. Do you want crayons? Do you want colored pencils? Do you want markers? We have all sorts of choices. What do you want? Oh, by the way, there is this oil that I'm using now, and to ingest. It's called MCT. It's quite great, actually. All right, so I'm on that last shuffle. I don't hear anything from Apple's Lemon. I'm gonna shut it down. So I'm just gonna assume that you had gotten what you needed from the reading, and if you didn't, that's okay too. The Lord speaks to us in all sorts of ways. Moral of the story is if it doesn't feel right, it's not right. Don't try to push it, and then don't talk trash. Don't talk trash about people just because you're hurt. Because when you do, my mom says it's like spitting up at the air and then it hits you in the face. You're trying to spit on people, but it doesn't work out like that. For one, like rounded. Well, you know, they still have, you can like sharpen it. I'll put these cards away. You can sharpen it, Meter. Try to always get one that has that built-in sharpener in the back of the box. Yo, what's that fuss? Everybody move to the back of the box. You can't. Yeah, you can. You like rounded ends? I was watching a tutorial with how to blend color pencils well. Different colors, and it said you have to always keep it sharpened. But I don't want to do all that. I just want to color. I just want to keep going, even if it's dull. But I understand now. It doesn't color as well when it's not very sharp. And put it away. Thank you all for letting me read all of that. Yep. I'm gonna put this back nicely so we don't have to clean it up at the end of the stream. Close this. I appreciate the baptism, sir. Yeah. I don't know if y'all seen Nacho Libre. He goes, the reason why we keep losing is because you are not baptized. He says, no, we're losing because you're fat. I love that scene. Okay, we get in here. Shift this over. The ends you speak of are not wax, nor graphite. Oh. Are you being naughty? Can't be. Are you being a naughty boy? What's a Jesus? What you talking about, mister? What's Jesus? Okay. Put this here. I'm so silly. Just Jesus. Don't you? So, our Amazon? No, not Amazon. It is my. That's it. He's our UPS, our regular UPS delivery guy. I have. His name is Jesus, and he'll call me, and caller ID's, has his name, and I'm like, oh my God, Jesus is calling me. And finally he answered. I went out there. He's like, we got your package. I was like, sir, do you know that you know that when you're calling me, it's like Jesus is calling? He said, yes, I know. He didn't think it was funny at all. I know he hears it all the time. He don't try to call me no more. But I love it. I love it. Yeah, he's like older, and he's like not. He doesn't like anybody. I think he's had it all his life. Right. Let's put this all back. All right. So, what were we doing? I know. He's probably thinking, you're not original. I should give him something. Ooh, I want to show y'all something. So in the name of spreading the good word, when I head out to clubs or when I go to anything outside of the home, I put on my best outfits, and then I wear my little cross, and then I go smoke a cigarette outside, and I'm often running into people who just want to strike up a conversation. Men, women, doesn't matter. And they Sometimes they may say things about how they're struggling. It just kind of just happens, okay? And if anything happens to come up, one guy was talking to me randomly. I was at a party with Nocturnal Rabbit, and one man outside, he's a little tipsy, he's walking his dog. He says he's been struggling to find work because of the writing strike. So he works in film. And he said there is one person, however, who flew him out to New York who wants to do something that's scripture based. He paid for everything. He just wants him to write because he was really impressed by his work, which I thought was very interesting. So I pulled out of my jacket pocket this little guy. I pass out these little itty bitties. These little itty bitty Bibles, they're not complete Bibles, okay? They just have the most pertinent information, some things that really stand out, some of our most popular bits of scripture. And he was really touched by it. He was like, I was like, yeah, man. I was like, poof, 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 poof. And he was telling me all about his relationship with the church. He's from Spain. And that's my son. I'm just going to color this last one. That back in college, your best friend, and all you did was make up a song. The lyrics, shouting in the club, you make me. Yeah, so I gave this little guy out at the club. It's so cute. For young folk, old people, they can look. It's like the smallest Bible ever. It's so cute. We can see it. It's just gotta look at it. But my son is awake. And I'm sad I didn't get to color very much, but I appreciate y'all for sitting with me. I'm gonna end it with a prayer before we go. Let me see. But before we shut everything down, and then we'll find somebody to read. But because we were talking about David, that was perfect. It's tiny. It's teeny. These nuts high. Bye, Iggy, bye. But wait. But before we go, we're going to do The Lord is Our Shepherd, written by and composed by King David. Okay? So the Lord is our shepherd, we shall not want. He makes us lie in green pastures. He leads us beside still waters. He restores our souls. He leads us to the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with us. Your rod and your staff, they comfort us. You lay a table before us in the presence of our enemies. You anoint our heads with oil, our cups overflow. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our life, and we will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the name of Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen. I am. Because my son is awake and I want to hang out with him, and we're hitting around the 3-hour mark, so that's perfect. No, Mr. Written and composed by King David of ancient Israel. More importantly, David of Bethlehem, where Jesus was born. Let's see. Let me look at... David's really special too, because he made all sorts of mistakes, okay? But God described him as a man that was after his own heart. King David. These nuts, how you been? How you been? Ooh. Let's see. We are going to raid Annie Banani. She is playing a very interesting game. Has she started? Role-playing musical. Cute. She has just started. Okay. Thank you, D's Nuts. I appreciate you. So, thank you all for sitting with me talking about tech and I Ching and Jesus and the interviews, and I had lots of fun. And we are gonna go ahead and spicy raid for those of you without the subscription, and then kimchi raid for those of you with the description. Stop it. Silly. You're so silly. Raid Annie Banani. Annie Banani is so lovely. She is a very thoughtful mother and gamer and hilarious. She has a butt bot in there, and that butt bot is a very busy bot. So you will say hello if you want to stay. If not, that's okay. But I appreciate all of you. Thank you for hanging out with me and for the fellowship. You all enjoy the rest of your day, and then I'll talk to you soon.